I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Seeking Help. The war is over. According to statistics, 972 mutants were killed or wounded, 57 modified vehicles were destroyed, 42 anti-aircraft machine guns, and 15 72mm artillery were destroyed. Countless ammunition exploded. Fishbone had 5 deaths and 14 injuries. The armored units were intact. The Black Blood mercenary group had 9 deaths and 21 injuries. In general, this result can be described as an epic victory. The sparks burning on the snow had been extinguished. The soldiers were busy shuttling back and forth, dragging the bodies of mutants outside the camp, sprinkling fuel on them, and setting them on fire. If left alone, it might attract the aliens hibernating nearby. Although it was not impossible to defeat them, it was still a problem. 8 hunting tigers drove across the Tapu River and advanced into the mutant camp. In the center of the camp, Luo Yang, the leader of the Black Blood mercenary group, and Jiang Chen stood side by side, talking and laughing as they watched the scene in the camp. "Damn it, your rocket is really awesome. It blew up everything," Luo Yang said, holding a cigarette in his mouth, looking at the scrap iron on the ground with lingering fear. "To be honest, this rocket is not very powerful. There is no anti-radar coating, nor energy shield against laser anti-missile. It can only be regarded as a cruise missile in the early stage. The commander sets the landing point of the rocket, and then the launch center calculates the rocket's route. The first step is very simple, and only requires a word from Jiang Chen. However, the second step is troublesome. Just because of Jiang Chen's words, Jiang Lin worked in front of the computer for a whole night. It's okay. This is said very modestly, but Jiang Chen's smile is very pretentious. This is also called okay. It's awesome, okay. Glancing at the employer who smiled so cheerfully, Luo Yang complained in his heart. "But now it's good. Don't think about the spoils." He grinned and took the cigarette with his fingers. "Where did you get this cigarette?" "Some good place." Jiang Chen shrugged and gave a vague answer. "Maybe you can buy this thing soon in the 6th Street district. The real world is indeed a good place, whether it is food or cigarettes and beer. They are all very cheap. Of course, this is all relative to his wealth." "Then I wish Boss Jiang good fortune." A trace of envy flashed in Luo Yang's eyes, and he arched his hands to Jiang Chen and said, "We want to get rich together, right?" Jiang Chen smiled. Luo Yang was stunned for a moment, then reacted and smiled at Jiang Chen. The hiring fee of 10,000 subcrystals is enough for him to upgrade the equipment of the mercenary group to a higher level. The trade route to Liuding Town in cooperation with Jiang Chen will be operational in the early spring of next year. Although Liuding Town's consumption capacity may not be as good as the 6th Street district, it is at least the second largest survivor for Xinhuanghe City. After all, there are still tens of thousands of profits. According to the 10% share, his mercenary group can get thousands of subcrystals for each trip. In this wasteland, no ordinary bandit dares to rob the members of their Black Blood mercenary group. The only trouble is zombies and alien species, but as long as you bypass the city and go to the port, it is still safe. This business is a sure win. Luo Yang is thinking about how much money he can make, but Jiang Chen is thinking about something else. Ordering chips from the 6th block will improve the combat performance of the mechanical exoskeleton of the Fishbone base by 1 level. At the same time, the technology of Liuding Town will also be of great help to Jiang Chen's electronic product development plan in the present world. As long as an order is placed, the chip workshop in Liuding Town will take any business, even if it is a communication equipment chip that has been eliminated for more than 100 years. Although it is a technology that has been eliminated for more than 100 years in the end times, it is still a black technology that is ahead of others by 10 to 20 years in the present world, which is enough for future people to conquer the mobile phone industry. Looking forward to their own beautiful future, the two fell into silence. At this moment, the communication chip beside Jiang Chen's ear suddenly vibrated. It was Zhao Chenwu calling. "Answer a call." After greeting Luo Yang, Jiang Chen walked aside. He pressed the answer button. "What's the matter?" Jiang Chen said in a relaxed tone. Have you solved the problem over there? Zhao Chenwu's voice sounded a little embarrassed. It's solved. Is there any problem? I have a little trouble here. Can you help me? Zhao Chenwu said this almost shamelessly. After all, he just rejected Jiang Chen's request for help not long ago. There was a playful expression on his face, but Jiang Chen didn't make it too difficult for this partner who helped him a lot. The Rod of God in the city center? Speaking of which, I got the news that the thing doesn't seem to have fallen to the ground. It has been confirmed to be fake. Zhao Chenwu's voice was slightly bitter. What is that? A traitor appeared in the 10-man committee. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen's expression was slightly solemn. Zhao Chenwu roughly explained to him the cause and effect of the matter. First, a declaration of war sent to the 6th district 2 years ago instantly made the calm parliament explode. This declaration of war was intercepted by the Crimson Chamber of Commerce 2 years ago, and the treasure mentioned in the holographic image immediately aroused Ko Jinsang's interest. He had a hunch that the treasure mentioned by the Northern United District might refer to a super weapon. After the deduction of the supercomputer, he concluded that the Rod of God fell in the center of Wanghei City. Because of selfishness, he hid this declaration of war, and naturally hid his discovery of space-based weapons. He secretly sent an exploration team to the city center to try to find the wreckage of the space-based weapon and then transport it to his secret base outside the city. As long as that thing is repaired, not to mention the 6th block of Wanghei City, even the entire Pan-Asian region will be under his control. However, in the end, he did not find the wreckage, but instead consumed a lot of combat power for it. Just as he was hesitating whether to make the declaration of war public, so that the 6th block could be prepared, the spy he planted in the Northern Union District suddenly brought good news. Civil war. The military police regiment, which controls the bases of most survivors in the Northern Union District, broke out in a brutal and unusual war with another powerful organization, the Twilight Church. Although the military police regiment won in the end and the Twilight Church failed, the military police regiment was still seriously injured, and the strategy of advancing eastward was still obstructed. Although the invaders did not come in the end, their attitude of eyeing Wanghei City still aroused his vigilance. In addition, the word civil war gave him a new idea. Since the military police regiment can gain absolute dominance in the Northern Union District through civil war, why can't his Crimson Chamber of Commerce? Once the seed of ambition sprouts, it is out of control. Chapter 202 Choice. Dictatorship. What a tempting word. Although he swore a Republican oath at the round table, he was more or less tired of the endless quarrels over the years. 10 councillors could argue for half a month over a bill to abolish slums. Just for a few thousand bugs, they argued for half a month. He had had enough. As the most powerful force, the Crimson Chamber of Commerce should rule this land. However, under the constraints of the other 9 councillors, it was difficult for him to exert his power. For example, the Cheyenne G-32 cruise missile controlled by Zhao Chenwu could turn his military base outside the city into ashes with just one shot. For example, the Chocobo Mecha of the Two-Headed Bull Chamber of Commerce, and for example, all those who could become members of the 10-man committee were not ordinary people. Even if he had 5 Wanderer tanks known as land cruisers, it was still a bit difficult to mess around. So he came up with a brilliant idea. He threw the declaration of war that tempted him to reach out to the city center onto the round table of the parliament. As expected, he was satisfied to see that everyone's eyes were red. One part was anger at the arrogance of the Northern Union, and the other part, which was the largest part, was greed for the treasure. Space-based weapon platform, the wreckage of the Rod of God. As he expected, the meeting passed the motion to jointly build a defense line. First unanimously face the outside world, and then jointly explore the city center. But all the members of parliament did not do much to consolidate the defense line. Instead, they used the platform of parliament to attack their political enemies and reprimand others for their slackness in the layout of the defense line. At the same time, they secretly sent a large number of people to explore the city center. As usual, everyone was thinking carefully, but everything was within the framework of rationality. However, immediately afterwards, a piece of explosive news shattered this rational framework. The Commission of Million Subcrystals. It was that commission that completely tore off the disguise on everyone's face. It was not just him who was making small moves behind the scenes. Everyone was plotting that space-based weapon. No matter what his purpose was, he must not let his competitors get that thing first. The 9 councillors put their hands and feet on the gambling table. At the same time, the Crimson Chamber of Commerce also showed its butcher knife. On the outskirts of the city center, the Crimson Chamber of Commerce's convoy took the lead in firing at the Zhao group, igniting the flames of civil war. In order to preserve the 80% of combat power sent to the city center, Zhao Chenwu reluctantly approved the use of the Xian G-32 cruise missile. At this point, Kao Jinsang's goal was achieved, and he detonated the nuclear bomb, wiping out the 80% of combat power that Zhao Chenwu tried so hard to preserve. The Xian G-32 was replaced with a Prowler tank. The remaining 4 Prowler tanks, with the cooperation of a small number of infantry, quickly broke into the outskirts of the city center and harvested the armored forces of the other 9 councillors. At the same time, the war in the 6th block was also ignited. As we all know, most of the combat power in the inner circle is composed of the private soldiers of the 10-man committee, who provide defense agreements to the militia in the form of leasing. However, now that the 9 councillors have sent most of their combat power to the city center, the inner circle's military strength can be described as extremely empty if the Crimson Chamber of Commerce is not counted. The Iron Gate fell heavily, isolating the inner circle from the outer circle. The soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce engaged in fierce exchanges of fire with the militia and the private soldiers of other councillors. With the burning of the villa of Kao Jinsang, the boss of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, by unknown forces as the fuse, the flames of civil war were officially ignited. Jiang Chen had 3 choices in front of him. First, be more stable, stop here, and consolidate the defense line along the river. Second, seize the opportunity to pursue the victory and march to the 7th area. Third, agree to Zhao Chenwu's request for help and send reinforcement to the 6th district. To be honest, the second and third options are very tempting. The mutants were defeated. If they marched westward at this time, and united with the rebel alliance, it would undoubtedly be an opportunity to completely wipe out the mutants, entrenched in the 7th area. But if they responded to Zhao Chenwu's request for help at this time, and sent reinforcement to the 6th district, it would also bring good benefits. The conditions offered by Zhao Chenwu were also very tempting. If he helped the 6th District Council, the ban on the sale of weapons would be open to him. This means that he can buy power armor from Block 6 to equip his army. A tent was set up in the center of the camp. In the tent, Jiang Chen called Sun Jiao, Chunan, Cheng Weiguo and others to hold a simple combat meeting. There are many options before us now. I want to hear your opinions. Jiang Chen said straight to the point. If we can get in touch with the Resistance Alliance in Jia City, it should be a good choice to pursue the victory. If not, although the armored force has been lost, there are still nearly 2,000 mutants entrenched inside 7. The safer choice is to continue to build a defense line along the river. Cheng Weiguo gave a very pertinent answer. Jiang Chen nodded, without making any comments, but looked at Sun Jiao. What do you think? I support your decision. Sun Jiao smiled and said. But I still want to refer to your suggestion. Jiang Chen smiled and said. I personally don't agree with support. Oh, reason? It's been twice. When we were in trouble, he never sent us reinforcement. Now it's his turn to be in trouble. Maybe we can sell them a few barrels of explosives. Sun Jiao said bluntly. Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled and didn't comment. Should I say she is worthy of being Sun Jiao? Such a simple and rough answer really sounds like her way of doing things. Those barrels of explosives should be a reference to the high-energy vacuum bombs that Zhao Chenwu dealt with him last time. Speaking of helping, the man surnamed Zhao did help a little. After all, he also took a lot of risks for this. The tit-for-tat approach may be very cool, but it is not advisable for a base. As the leader of a faction, he should consider more the interests of the collective, rather than some boring reciprocity. What do you think? Jiang Chen looked at Chunan. I agree to send reinforcement, Chunan said with a smile. Because of the power armor? However, to Jiang Chen's surprise, Chunan shook his head. That's totally unnecessary. After a pause, Chunan looked at Jiang Chen and continued. The 10-member committee has run out of luck due to the fratricide. It's not a bad idea to change it to a wise master to rule there. Everyone in the tent held their breath. Jiang Chen stared at Chunan blankly, with a strange expression. Just as he was about to say something, Cheng Weiguo said what he wanted to say for him. Do you know how many people are in the militia of the 6th block? A full 560 people. After this civil war, how many will be left? What's more, everyone knows the combat effectiveness of those militias. Chunan smiled disapprovingly. It's not just about power, but also about prestige. Only with the combination of the two can we deter the small armed forces attached to the 6th block. If it were us, now all the power is spent in the city center. The mercenary group and the hunter team are fighting for the bounty of 1 million sub-crystals, and the 10-member committee is fighting for the wreckage of the space-based weapon. Now is the weakest moment of the 6th block. This is the only chance. We only need to enter the inner circle in the name of rescue, and then turn the tables. As long as we control the inner circle, the entire 6th block will be under our control. When saying this, Chunan stared at Jiang Chen's eyes. This is a gamble. Can I hear the reason that prompted you to make such a suggestion? Jiang Chen said after a moment of silence. Because I believe in you. Only you can bring real order to this wasteland. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 War never changes. Fuck. Their firepower is too strong. With his back against the bunker, a militiaman in a bulletproof vest tried to stick his rifle out of the bunker, but was quickly suppressed by the bullets. We need support. Repeat, we need support. The soldier, who was crouching behind the concrete wall, holding his rifle tightly, yelled at the communication device that no one responded to. A soldier risked his life to stick out of the bunker, aimed the anti-armor rocket launcher on his shoulder at the infantry vehicle that was pouring firepower, and pulled the trigger. With a red tail flame, the rocket flew like an iron fist. However, about 10 meters away from the infantry vehicle, the activated nitrogen reactive armor was quickly blown away and hit the shop next to it like a kite with a short line. The subsequent strafing tore the soldier who stuck out of the bunker into pieces. The war broke out too suddenly. The enemy was not only the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, but also some soldiers from the militia. They had been bought by the Crimson Chamber of Commerce in advance, and when the infantry vehicles entered the inner circle, they responded to the Crimson Chamber of Commerce's rebellion. A completely asymmetric war. Although neither side used heavy firepower, the private soldiers of the 10-man committee were much stronger than those of the militia. Not only in training, but also in equipment. Although there were 400 militiamen on the side of the parliament in the inner circle, they were still completely suppressed by the Crimson Chamber of Commerce soldiers of only 150 people. What's more than 100 militiamen suddenly defected, and there were 5 infantry vehicles equipped with heavy machine guns on the opposite side. On the side of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, even ordinary light infantrymen were equipped with carbon nano armor and digital helmets for auxiliary aiming. Not to mention the special forces wearing mechanical exoskeletons and the iron lumps wearing power armor. Because of their own selfishness, although they had the most advanced arms production line in the wasteland, the parliament had never made a motion to update the militia's arms. Because only when the militia's equipment was backward would their private soldiers be hired. The monthly commission is a considerable income, which is paid by taxes. It is simply a gold mine. However, now, they have reaped the consequences. The only ones who can compete with the Crimson Chamber of Commerce in terms of equipment are the private soldiers of the other 9 councillors. However, because of the exploration plan in the city center, almost all of their forces are placed in the city center. At this moment, they are also facing the harvest of the armored forces of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce. It is still unknown how many will remain. Standing on the roof of the Jiao Group building, Jiao Chen Wu looked down silently at the sporadic flames in the inner circle. The flames began to shrink inward from the edge of the wall. He knew very well what those meant. The Crimson Chamber of Commerce has already gained the upper hand. The 400 militia soldiers on the front line and the 50 private soldiers of the councillors who were put together temporarily were beaten back. He never imagined that 5 infantry vehicles could force him into such a desperate situation. However, the fact is that when both sides do not have heavy firepower, infantry vehicles can be the father. Pushing open the door, Sulei walked in. This cold-looking secretary has put on a black combat uniform and a Ripper automatic rifle produced by the Zhao Group military factory. Usually, she is Zhao Chenwu's secretary, lover, and driver, but at critical moments, she will pick up a gun and act as his bodyguard. Boss, the Crimson Chamber of Commerce has approached our building. Please follow me to retreat to a safe place. Sulei said in a deep voice. Retreat? Where else can we retreat? The gate has been sealed. Zhao Chenwu smiled bitterly. Chen Wei has lost contact, but he is probably dead. Standing at this height, he certainly can't miss the mushroom cloud. Nuclear bomb. He almost forgot about that thing. Speaking of which, that thing should be the cheapest thing. The underground shelter of Paradise Island Hotel. Sulei said. Hearing this, Zhao Chenwu shook his head. I never intended to use that thing. There is no shelter that can be hidden forever. If the old man surnamed KO wins, even if I stay underground for 10 years and then come out, the ending will be the same. He has put too much effort into this, and he is unwilling to give up these things even if he dies. I will fight for you to the end. Giving up trying to persuade the boss, Sulei sighed, and a rare smile appeared on her cold face. Zhao Chenwu was stunned for a moment, smiled weakly, and said nothing, but continued to look downstairs. With the rifle loaded, Sulei turned and walked downstairs. Not here yet, he muttered to himself, and glanced at the electronic watch on the table. Jiang Chen promised to send reinforcement. This is his last straw. The people of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce are approaching, and he can even see through the ink-colored bulletproof glass that the infantry vehicles are venting firepower on the street and suppressing the militia group. The power armor used its high mobility to go around to the back of the bunker, and the rotary machine gun in his right hand brutally tore the infantry lying on the ground. There was a sudden huge shock under his feet, and the bulletproof glass was shaken. He had already guessed what happened, but he still looked at the touchpad on the desk. He pressed the power button, and the scene in the hall emerged. At the door were soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce wearing mechanical exoskeletons. The steel protective door had been blown open by them with thermite. This group of soldiers holding rifles quickly broke into the building and exchanged fire with the security guards in the building. There was not much suspense in the battle. Although the security guards of the Zhao group had also undergone military training, they were still far behind these professional soldiers in terms of combat effectiveness. What's more, they were only wearing bulletproof vests that were no different from the militia, and they seemed very powerless when facing the attack of the soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce. The first floor was quickly captured. Zhao Chenwu watched helplessly as a soldier wearing a mechanical exoskeleton pulled out a pistol and executed a security guard who was lying on the ground and struggling. Then he pointed the gun at the camera and pulled the trigger with a grin. The camera shattered. The elevator was cut off, and the people of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce fought fiercely with the security guards of the Zhao group in the safe passage. Cabinets, safes and other things were thrown into the stairs as obstacles, but they did not help the situation. Sulei was very strong in combat. She organized the remaining 20 or so security guards together and fought fiercely with the soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce in the lobby on the 12th floor. Relying on the concrete wall shelter, she occasionally stretched out her rifle to fire back at the opposite side. However, judging from the blood on her shoulder, she would not be able to hold on for long. The security guard took out the blast shield as a shelter and fired back with a short-range rifle. The dome-shaped security robot flashed out from the corner with a miniature machine gun, and the accumulated firepower caused a certain degree of casualties to the soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce who entered the building. But that was all. The EMP grenade quickly paralyzed its weapon system, and the ray gun cut through its metal armor without any suspense, turning it into a pile of scrap metal. This is not a military factory, but just the office building of the Zhao group. Under the checks and balances of power, no one would have thought that a war would break out here one day. In the picture, Sulei held the gun steadily, maintaining a shooting posture, and fighting and retreating. There were only a few security guards left with him. It seemed that they could not be stopped. Sighing, Zhao Chenwu opened the drawer. Inside was a revolver. Is this the end? He muttered to himself, and slowly filled the revolver with bullets. It has been a long time since he fought on the front line like a soldier, and it seems that it has been like this since the moment he became a member of the 10-man committee. But now, there are no more choices. Explosions came from under his feet from time to time, but Jiang Chenwu's heart was calmer than ever. Even if reinforcement arrived, it would probably be too late. At this moment, a dazzling white light suddenly lit up on the street in front of the building. The deafening explosion almost made him forget to think, and the bulletproof glass was instantly covered with a layer of dense cracks. The rising mushroom cloud. Fuck. His lips twitched, his pupils shook for a long time, and he uttered such a word for a long time. Nuclear bomb. Someone actually detonated a nuclear bomb in the inner circle. It must not be someone from the Crimson Chamber of Commerce. They have already gained the upper hand. It is not someone from the militia. They don't have such a thing at all. It can only be a certain congressman. It would rather die together than give up the power in hand. Jiang Chenwu stared blankly at the mushroom cloud approaching outside the window, but the movement of his hands had already stopped. The shockwave overturned the infantry vehicle, engulfed the fleeing power armor, and swept through all the soldiers who failed to escape without distinguishing between friend and foe. Houses worth tens of thousands of subcrystals collapsed. Unarmed civilians howled on the ruins, and the merchants watched silently as their shops turned into rubble, and even forgot to escape. As for the soldiers who rushed towards his building, he didn't want to see it anymore. He was completely bloodthirsty. Looking at the parliament building in the distance, the flag symbolizing the alliance and democracy was lowered, and a mocking smile rose at the corner of his mouth. The flag of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce has been raised on the roof of the parliament building. The round table had been split in half. Kao Jinsang stood alone in front of the window, staring blankly at the mushroom cloud outside. It was like a basin of cold water poured on his head. The excitement of reaching the pinnacle of power in his chest was instantly cooled. Although he had considered that some members of parliament might show some incredible cards. After all, a coup is a gamble. But he never thought that someone would detonate a nuclear bomb here. Are you already bloodthirsty? His voice was slightly bitter. Speaking of which, in a wasteland without order, thinking about the bottom line is a very stupid thing. Dropping nuclear bombs in one's own city, even in the pre-war country, there was such awareness. He seemed to have seen this scene somewhere. Because it was too far away, that memory has been covered with a layer of white mist. War has never changed. Chapter 204, The Battle. Nuclear bombs are always the cheapest thing in the wasteland. Just like the mines that were scattered all over the wilderness after World War II. Tactical nuclear bombs that do not require complex, cutting-edge carrier missiles and can be launched by artillery are undoubtedly cheap and efficient killing tools. Although the post-war coalition government had technically recovered the nuclear weapons left on the battlefield, there must be some that slipped through the net. Jiang Chenwu no longer wanted to think about who detonated the nuclear bomb. It was meaningless to think about who it was. Looking from afar, he saw black smoke rising from the building of his rival Fengdi, and then it collapsed. The fat guy refused to compromise until the last moment, and chose to self-destruct the building, perishing together with the soldiers who entered the building, just like the nuclear bomb. The situation of other congressmen was roughly the same. Kao Jinsang seemed to be sure that the core power of the entire inner circle was in the hands of a few congressmen. After breaking through the defense line of the militia, his soldiers immediately attacked the headquarters of the major congressman. The nuclear bomb did not turn the tide of the war. It could only be regarded as a dying struggle. It seemed that they had expected this to happen. The forces of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce were very dispersed, and the nuclear bomb did not even reach a quarter of his combat power. Has he lost? However, at this moment, he suddenly heard the sound of a phone call. Hello. Which floor? It was like the sound of nature. The long-awaited voice rang in his ears. The 21st floor. Jiang Chenwu was ecstatic and spoke quickly. Ahem. I'm not asking which floor you are on. I'm asking which floor the Crimson Chamber of Commerce soldiers who broke into your building are on. Jiang Chenwu was stunned and glanced at the surveillance video on the touch panel. Sulei was already retreating to the 16th floor, and the 15th floor had been completely occupied by the soldiers of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce. The 15th floor. Understood. As soon as the voice fell, an explosion sounded from downstairs. The violent vibration almost knocked him to the ground. He stared blankly out the window at the black spot in the distant sky. A creepy gap was blasted out of the building in the distance, revealing a hideous steel skeleton. Direct hit, a great shot. Looking at the screen on the tablet in his hand, Jiang Chen gave a thumbs up to the gunner at the hatch. The gunner was very excited to hear Jiang Chen's encouragement, and worked hard to reload the magazine, and then waited for the firing instruction. He had been watching the battle for a long time, including the nuclear bomb. Jiang Chen saw it all. But he didn't expect that someone would detonate a weapon as powerful as a nuclear bomb in the inner circle. In order to prevent this place from being completely reduced to ruins, he felt that he had to take the stage. Ready to retreat? That's not possible. Looking at the fleeing red dot on the screen, Jiang Chen muttered and tapped the screen with his finger. He was used to the humming of electricity and the explosion that broke through the sound barrier. The street on the screen splashed with snow and fog tens of meters high. The retreating infantry vehicle was smashed into pieces by the 10-kilogram mass bomb without any suspense. It was as easy as playing a computer game. The green dots on the ground were moving closer to the inner circle. They were soldiers from the Fishbone base. The Black Blood mercenary group was left by Jiang Chen at the Tapu River. He did not tell Luo Yang about the incident in the 6th block. He only told them that, as long as they stayed there for 3 days, they could get an extra 1000 subcrystals in wages. No one would refuse such a good job. Everyone knew that the mutants were no longer able to march eastward. In order to avoid complications, Jiang Chen decided to keep the mercenary group, which was currently ranked first in the 6th block, away for the time being. When the large force approached the 6th block, Sun Jiao immediately stated her position and provided assistance to the besieged Zhao group as an ally. The more than 30 militiamen and sheriffs who were at a loss in the outer circle chose to let them go without much hesitation and opened the airspace to the helicopter, driven by Chunan. They were loyal to the parliament, although the organization was completely messed up. Since the Crimson Chamber of Commerce shot at the parliament, the Crimson Chamber of Commerce was their enemy. Hello, Lao Zhao, I'm going to make a hole in your inner circle wall. Do you mind? Jiang Chen smiled and opened the communication and said to Zhao Chenwu. I don't mind. The inner wall was very strong. It took 4 10 kg class bombs to knock down a corner of the wall. Seeing the wall collapse, Sun Jiao immediately led 200 infantrymen to approach the breakthrough point. The main force of the attack was 6 power armors, 8 modified pickup trucks with machine guns welded on the top, and more than 30 soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons. With the support of air firepower, the balance of the war was undoubtedly tilted towards Jiang Chen. Zhao gang, take your people to take down their anti-aircraft machine guns and anti-aircraft missiles. Jiang Chen continued to order. Yes. Another 50 people entered the 6th block. The wall had been broken, and the remaining militia had rushed to the inner circle for support. The outer circle of the 6th block could be said to be completely undefended. More than 50 people quickly took control of the Air Defense Command Center, temporarily detained the staff on duty, and confiscated their communication equipment. In this way, anything that could threaten the IS-51 no longer existed. With the firepower support of the air gunboat, the ground forces led by Sun Jiao advanced to the center of the inner circle with great momentum. The people of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce were completely stunned by this sudden armed force. Any assembled firepower point would be blown to pieces by the 10 kg class mass bombs that fell from the sky. The main road has been occupied. Sun Jiao's report sounded in his ears. Continue to advance towards the parliament building. Jiang Chen ordered calmly. Understood. The target of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce's attack was the headquarters of the major congressman. Now it seems that at least 4 congressmen have been killed. Only 5 congressmen are left, and they are still struggling. How long will your people last? I can't hold on any longer. Zhao Chenwu's voice came to his ears, accompanied by the sound of gunfire. Soon. In addition, I suggest you open the window and stay in the office. After speaking, Jiang Chen turned off the communication and ordered Chunan to fly the plane over and descend. It's time for the surgery. In fact, I personally suggest that it's better for Zhao Chenwu to die here. After all, the cleaner the old forces die, the more beneficial it will be for our plan to turn the tables. Chunan said something incredible while pulling down the joystick. Maybe, but there are other uses for keeping it. Jiang Chen gestured to Zhao Ziaoxia, who was sitting quietly opposite him. She didn't say anything, but just stood up silently and walked to the side of the cabin. Chunan shrugged, didn't persuade his boss, and reached out to press a button under the joystick. The automatic hover was turned on again, and the Type 50 electromagnetic gun was pulled back into the cabin. Zhao Ziaoxia skillfully took the sniper rifle from her back and aimed it at the building. The area swept by the crushes was left with only corpses. Searching for the enemy, shooting, pulling the bolt, the next one. The whole set of actions was done in one go. Zhao Chenwu, who was leaning behind his desk, hugged his seriously injured secretary and gestured a thank you to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen smiled and said nothing, just holding the tablet and looking at the ground. It's over. But this inner circle no longer has the charm of the past and has become another look. Chapter 205, Taking Charge. Before dusk, the war was over. The soldiers who entered the parliament building found Ko Jinsang's body in the meeting hall. Blood was flowing from his temple, and a pistol was lying next to his hand. When failure was inevitable, the old man chose to commit suicide. Seeing that the boss had been killed, the stubborn soldiers threw away their weapons and chose to surrender. The flag of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce was torn down by the soldiers who climbed up the building and thrown into the fire. Dead. It's really a bargain for him. Cursing, Zhao Chenwu limped beside Jiang Chen. He was shot in the leg. Although it has been treated, it is still a bit inconvenient to move. At this moment, the two walked side by side in the corridor of the parliament building. There are only 5 people left in the 10-member committee, and an emergency meeting is about to be held. There are too many things to discuss. Thank you so much this time. If it weren't for your people, Ko Jinsang would have succeeded. I will try my best to gain benefits for you in the parliament, Zhao Chenwu said with a smile. You're welcome. As for the benefits, I think I can fight for them myself like before. Zhao Chenwu stopped walking, and the smile froze on his face. Jiang Chen smiled, pushed open the door of the meeting room, and walked in. Because the round table had been destroyed, Jiang Chen ordered the soldiers to drag a long table from somewhere else. 5 councillors were on the left and right sides, and Jiang Chen sat at the head of the table unceremoniously. Seeing Jiang Chen's move, Zhao Chenwu seemed to have expected something, but just sighed and said nothing. However, the other 4 councillors were not so generous. If they hadn't seen the 2 soldiers holding rifles and wearing mechanical exoskeletons guarding the door, they might have jumped up to express their dissatisfaction. I deeply regret that such a tragic incident has occurred. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, the councillors present all spit in their hearts. There was no regret on his face. But life must go on. I guess you are all busy people, so let's get started quickly. Jiang Chen spread his hands and said with a smile. I agree. The cleanup and reconstruction of the inner circle must begin as soon as possible. A tall and thin councillor nodded. His name is Kang Zhe, and he is the boss of the 2-headed bull Chamber of Commerce. Although he just received a communication from the front line that his trump card, the Chocobo Mecha, had been destroyed by the Prowler tank of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, there are still more than 30 soldiers left, and they are now retreating to the 6th block. Agree. Second. Zhao Chenwu did not speak, but he looked a little lonely. In this civil war, his losses can be said to be the greatest among all the councillors. 2 spider tanks, 20 power armors, Cheyenne G-32 cruise missiles, and excellent soldiers. Now the remaining combat power of the Zhao group is only the 5 power armors and 50 infantry sent to build a defense line outside the city. First, let's hear some good news. Jiang Chen took out a graphene card from his pocket and put it on the table. I found this on that old fox. It says that the declaration of war was made 3 years ago, and due to internal reasons, their plan to move eastward was aborted. All the councillors present breathed a sigh of relief. After experiencing such a tragic civil strife, if the Northern Union District attacked them at this time, they would have no chance of winning without 2 or 3 years of recuperation. This is indeed good news. In this case, the defense line can be slowed down. A councillor with a beer belly wiped the sweat from his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. His name is Fan Cheng, the owner of the Metal Shell Chamber of Commerce, the largest construction company in the 6th block. Due to his originally weak combat effectiveness, his private soldiers suffered the least casualties in this civil war, but his economic losses were the greatest among all. The Inner Circle West District was almost reduced to ruins by nuclear bombs. As the largest real estate developer in the 6th block, his direct economic losses amounted to 2 million subcrystals. But there was not much frustration on his face, because being able to survive was always good. Yes, transferring the soldiers from the front back will also help stabilize the situation in the 6th block. The mercenaries and bandits attached to the 6th block have begun to get a little restless due to the turmoil in the inner circle. We must restore the authority of the 10-man committee as soon as possible and control the situation. Kang Zhe said in a deep voice. Don't worry about that. My people have already controlled the situation in the outer circle. After testing a 10 kg class mass bomb against a small mercenary group that attempted to take advantage of the situation, everyone has obviously become more obedient. Jiang Chen spread his hands and said. The meeting room was instantly quiet, so quiet that it seemed that a pin drop could be heard clearly. Speaking of which, can your plane fly away? The silence lasted for a long time, and Kang Zhe said with difficulty. In order to stabilize the situation, my helicopter will patrol the sky regularly. Believe me, I'm doing this for your good. Jiang Chen smiled. Our soldiers will be back soon. As long as the parliament is reopened, the situation will be under control soon. That's right. Let's discuss your reward first. The 6th District Treasury will take out 50,000 subcrystals as compensation for your military assistance. Fancheng looked a little ugly, but he still managed a few smiles and whispered. 50,000? Are you sending away beggars? Jiang Chen laughed. What does Mr. Jiang mean? Kang Zhe's face had turned cold. Nothing, just taking what I deserve. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression, crossing his fingers. For example, this parliament building, since I snatched it back from Ko Jinsang, it should belong to me, right? It's crazy, you can't do this. A congressman stood up and glared at Jiang Chen. No one will obey your orders. Only more than 200 people. Don't you think your appetite is too big? Jiang Chen waited quietly for these indignant congressmen to vent their dissatisfaction, and then he coughed lightly. Seeing that everyone was looking at this side, Jiang Chen slowly spoke. But you didn't have a choice, did you? Everyone was speechless. My people are outside, and there are even 2 at the door. Jiang Chen raised his chin towards the 2 soldiers at the door. The 2 soldiers holding rifles immediately saluted him and continued to stand guard. And we don't even know how many of your people are still alive. The air defense headquarters in the 6th district has been occupied by our people. My helicopter can easily silence any opposing voices. I'm not discussing this with you, I'm just announcing this fact to you. From now on, this is my territory. I will use my own way to bring stability here. Chapter 206 Military Rule. The meeting ended quickly. No, it couldn't be called a meeting, because Jiang Chen didn't discuss it with them, but directly read out the future arrangements. From today, the 6th district will implement a curfew for at least 10 days, until the situation stabilizes. The 10-member committee was expanded to 20 people, divided into the upper house and the lower house, respectively, by big businessmen and industry representatives. The upper house is composed of the top 10 businessmen with registered assets, and the lower house is composed of ******. The militia group was disbanded on the spot, after disarming because of 80% of the war damage and serious internal corruption. The defense of the 6th district was completely taken over by the Fishbone base. In order to avoid similar civil war incidents, Jiang Chen announced the establishment of the 6th district military government above the parliament, integrating law enforcement and military power, and having a veto over proposals made by the parliament. The power of the parliament is strictly limited to legislation and administration. As for the head of the military government, the position of marshal, it is naturally Jiang Chen. The reason for making this decision similar to constitutional monarchy was also Chunan's proposal. Jiang Chen unexpectedly discovered that this guy actually knows a lot about politics. Although the power of the 10-man committee was mostly lost in the city center and the civil war, it is still not to be underestimated. For example, their prestige in the 6th block and the soldiers deployed on the front line. If we can't catch them all, we can only divide the power in their hands and make the small forces in the outer circle stand on our side. We only need to control the military power. There is not much difference between direct control and indirect control. The establishment of the House of Commons is undoubtedly great news for small merchants, small mercenary groups and hunter groups in the outer circle. Although there are many people, they are not united and have been excluded from the core power. Jiang Chen's move undoubtedly won the support of these majority. Although they will not do anything, it undoubtedly stabilizes the situation. Combined with the deterrence of force, those slightly larger mercenary groups and other forces also chose to keep their place. As for the 5 councillors, including Zhao Chenwu, they were all forced to accept the implantation of the honor chip and gloriously became knights of the fishbone base. Jiang Chen expressed his appreciation for their cooperation and promised not to embezzle their assets in the 6th block and allow them to continue to retain their private soldiers and industries. Jiang Chen even gave half of the assets of the congressman who had unfortunately died to them, which was also a compensation for their losses, and appeased their dissatisfaction to a certain extent. For these ambitious people, this is the only way to restrain them. On the 2nd floor of the Parliament building, an office was sorted out as the office of the military government marshal. Sitting at the desk, Sun Jiao held a tablet in her hand and smiled as she reported to Jiang Chen about the work in the past 2 days. There are a total of 52 prisoners of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce rebels. All of them have been implanted with slave chips and reorganized into the corps stationed in the Shengxiang town colony. The rebels fighting in the city center saw that the coup had failed and 1 prowler tank surrendered to us because of fuel exhaustion and the other 3 retreated to the Crimson Chamber of Commerce base outside the city. The surrender of a prowler tank was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise for Jiang Chen. Electromagnetic reactive armor using the mesmer effect can almost make most kinetic weapons using metal shells ineffective. Particle shields also have a certain degree of resistance to energy weapons. The Type 52 particle cannon as the main gun can destroy most armored units. It can be said that with the addition of this prowler tank, the armored strength of the fishbone base will rise to a higher level. Has there been any reaction from the military base of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce outside the city? Not yet. There seems to be some kind of dispute within them. With the death of Ko Jinsong, the slave chip implanted in his nephew Ko Wei has automatically become ineffective. In the distribution of power, Ko Wei and Ko Jinsong's son Ko Guankei have a conflict. Another internal conflict. Jiang Chen touched his chin and muttered to himself. After all, human hearts are not something that can be controlled by chips. Human hearts? Shaking his head, Jiang Chen decided not to think about this question and motioned Sun Jiao to continue. 10 sets of power armor, 87 sets of mechanical exoskeletons, and 210 pieces of carbon nano armor were seized from the battlefield and the warehouse of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce. Some of the equipment only needs a little repair to be used normally. Sun Jiao smiled. It's a great harvest. Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh. The best is yet to come. Sun Jiao couldn't help but raise a smug smile and then reported, we seized assets worth 1.5 million crystals, as well as a military factory, 2 pharmaceutical factories, and a biomass power station. Jiang Chen took a breath, and then his face showed ecstasy. Biomass power station. 1 ton of zombie fat can provide 1000 to 2000 kilowatt hours of electricity. 30% of the electricity in the entire 6th district is supplied by this power station. Excluding costs, every 100 degrees of electricity brings an average of 2 points of crystals. The profit per day is between 700 and 1000 crystals. How are you going to reward me? Seeing the excited expression on Jiang Chen's face, Sun Jiao playfully threw him a wink and said coquettishly, is a kiss enough? Jiang Chen said with a sly smile. Rolling her eyes at Jiang Chen, Sun Jiao pouted, put away the tablet, stretched and complained. We have finished the report. I'm so exhausted these past few days. When are we going home? We will be able to go back in a few days. If you are tired, I can give you a massage. Taking a sneak peek at the roundness that was about to pop out, Jiang Chen joked calmly. Sun Jiao's cheeks were slightly red, but a sly smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She walked to the desk and sat on it in an extremely ambiguous posture. One hand was resting on the table, and the fingers of the other hand gently rested on Jiang Chen's chin, and she slowly moved her face closer. "Then I want it now," she said in a coquettish voice full of royal sister power. "Now. There is no place here. Isn't there a desk? I can lie on it," she said in a seductive tone, her slender jade fingers slowly wandering on the desk, her eyes full of love when she looked at Jiang Chen. This little goblin. Office pointer. V.I. Jiang Chen swallowed his saliva, and just as the charming thoughts in his mind took over, his hand unconsciously reached out to her slightly open collar. Dang dang. There was a knock on the door suddenly. Like a cat, Sun Jiao nimbly jumped to the ground and stood up. Jiang Chen also put his hand on the table calmly, but his eyebrows twitched unconsciously, as if nothing had happened. "Ahem. Come in." Jiang Chen coughed and said. Pushing open the door, he saw Cheng Weiguo's honest square face. Seeing the serious expression on the boss's face and the dissatisfied expression on the face of the boss's wife, he seemed to realize something, and immediately showed an embarrassed expression on his face. Should I step aside first?" Jiang Chen saw the expression on his face and immediately became embarrassed. He coughed and pretended to be serious. "No need. If you have something to say, just say it." Hearing this, Cheng Weiguo's face straightened up and thought, as expected of the boss, business is more important. So he quickly said, "Liuding Town has sent an envoy who hopes to visit you." Liuding Town. Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Tomorrow enter the next volume, The Road to Expansion. Chapter 207 The Messenger from Liuding Town. 2171. The South China Sea War broke out. However, the battlefield was not limited to the South China Sea, or even to the ocean. The flames of war spread across the 12 administrative regions of the Pan-Asian Cooperation, PAC, within a day. The Bohai aircraft carrier battle group and the **** aircraft carrier fought a decisive battle 30 kilometers west of Jeju Island, and NATO narrowly won the battle. The retreating Bohai crashed into the port of Wanghai City due to nuclear strikes, EMP and other reasons. Because of the premature loss of combat effectiveness, it became one of the most intact ships preserved during the war. A very ironic ending. Due to funding issues, the World United Organization, which dominated the post-war order, did not repair the Bohai and acquiesced to the survivors' migration to the Bohai. Later, the Kennedy Space Center, Plesetsk Space Launch Site, Jiuquan Launch Center and other space bases launched colony ships into space. The World United Organization was declared disbanded, and the nuclear winter entered its most severe period. A series of events occurred. The abandoned people experienced initial doubts, and finally chose to unite together. This is the history of the development of Liuding Town. If these fragmentary things are described in detail, it must be an epic of no less than 1 million words. In short, there are all kinds of interesting people gathered there. There are locals like me who boarded the ship as babies. There are NATO soldiers who gave up their nationality. There are unlucky people who didn't have time to enter the shelter. And there are pre-war people who crawled out of the shelter that was opened in advance. Grinning, Chunan reached out and pulled down the joystick and talked to Jiang Chen who was sitting in the co-pilot seat in a casual tone. "How is the living situation there?" Jiang Chen asked casually, but his eyes looked out the window. "It's just like that. Because I'm a pilot, my salary is average. I save the money for drinking and can eat sardines every week. That thing tastes pretty good and the degree of mutation is not high. In addition, in the abandoned ammunition depot of the aircraft carrier, you only need to spend 10 subcrystals to find a pretty girl to sleep with." Speaking of this, Chunan smiled nostalgically. The third day of routine patrol. The nuclear bomb crater was like a hideous scar, embedded in the land of the northern area of the inner circle. Teams of cleaners in orange protective suits, carrying large boxes on their backs, and holding slender nozzles, walked on the ruins, and sprayed radiation cleaning fluid on the objects attached with radiation. For local radiation, the radiation cleaning fluid is still very useful. Just spray it on the radioactive object, and it can neutralize the radioactive element attached to it. But at the same time, this kind of thing is very troublesome to make, and the price is extremely expensive. The World United Government once produced a batch, but it is still a drop in the bucket for the nuclear radiation spread all over the world. If it weren't for the fact that this is the inner circle, where every inch of land is valuable, Jiang Chen would not be willing to approve the use of the expensive radiation cleaning fluid. After all, this is already his territory. At least the radiation level here must return to normal before the engineering team can move in and start reconstruction. I'm asking about industrial capacity and military strength in all aspects, you know. The army is basically based on the Air Force, supplemented by fire support. As for industry, Liuding Town has no industry, and it doesn't need industry, Chunan said with a smile. After a pause, he continued, the beer bottle company is the factory of Liuding Town. They have strong heavy industrial capacity and produce quality bombs or various types of shipborne missiles for Liuding Town, as well as other large industrial products. There are also some small survivor bases scattered in the wasteland, and they will also transport goods to Liuding Town. Is sardine the only specialty of Liuding Town? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Of course not. Many mutant fish have a gentle character, and the production of subcrystals is also very stable. The income from fishing is not just fish meat, but also the sesame-sized subcrystals growing on the spinal cord. In addition, there is the chip manufacturing industry, which does not require much space, and the raw materials are also easy to get by the sea, but these are not the main points. Chunan smiled mysteriously and looked at Jiang Chen jokingly. There is the most luxurious casino and technical academy in this wasteland. There are many ways to play, and they are also very magical. So many businessmen from Susao and Hangzhou come here, willingly offering their hard-earned Asian crystals with both hands, and they enjoy it. That's really a good place. Have you tried it? No, I'm just a cheap pilot. Chunan shrugged and said helplessly. Besides these, there is also a gunfire agreement. Gunfire agreement? Jiang Chen frowned and asked. Yes, this is also one of the businesses in Liuding Town. The patrol has ended. Chunan pulled the joystick and pressed a few keys next to the instrument and started to return to the helicopter. The range of the Bohei shipborne electromagnetic gun can reach 500 kilometers, which means it can reach as far as Luzhou from the Yangtze River estuary. Of course, the farther away the target, the higher the cost and the lower the accuracy. But it is more than enough to strike targets in Wanhei City. So, a 100 kg class mass bullet costs 2000 crystals and can be used against any small force that has not joined the artillery agreement. As for joining the artillery agreement, you need to pay 10,000 crystals per month. This is just like collecting protection money. Jiang Chen laughed and scolded. It's protection money, so the purpose of their coming to the 6th block this time is obvious. Chunan said casually. Did the 6th district pay them before? No. Because the Sky Tribulation 32 missile from the Zhao group can send them to the bottom of the sea with just one shot, without even a chance to defend themselves. The 5 prowler tanks of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce can also completely cut off their land supply. But now, these things seem to be gone. The only remaining prowler tank can still be considered a bargaining chip, but it does not have absolute deterrence. The Civil War exhausted the trump cards of the 10-man committee and the 6th district's tough confidence. Because those trump cards are not only used to check and balance colleagues, but also to restrain those external enemies. Do you think I should agree to that artillery agreement? Jiang Chen smiled indifferently. To be honest, if the Fishbone base had not yet trained a skilled pilot, Jiang Chen really wanted to transfer Chunan to be a manager. Being a helicopter pilot is really a waste of talent. Take the annexation of the 6th block for example. Chunan helped him a lot in both decision making and stabilizing the situation. Of course not. Although 10,000 subcrystals are just a drop in the ocean for the 6th block, it doesn't mean that we should give in to them. Oh. Do we have any trump cards left? Of course we do. Chunan smiled. Did the boss forget what we used to destroy the mutants' bridgehead? That big firecracker? Jiang Chen laughed. That thing may not be enough against an aircraft carrier. The technical content of that ballistic missile is too low. If the mutants were not careless and the camp was not built too casually, most of their combat power would not have been wiped out by that rocket. The anti-missile technology before the war was very advanced, and common ones included radar locking and laser anti-missile. The reason why the Sky Tribulation 32 is so powerful is that it can counter most anti-missile systems. If you use that kind of big firecracker to attack Liuding Town, I'm afraid it will be shot down by anti-aircraft electromagnetic guns or laser beams halfway through its flight. Of course it's not used to attack Liuding Town's aircraft carriers, just aim at Liuding Town's allies. Chunan shook his head. For example, the beer bottle company can produce 100 kg class mass bombs, but it doesn't mean they can also produce electromagnetic guns of the same caliber. Under the protection of Liuding Town's shells, they have not developed a strong military force at all. Without those allies, Liuding Town is just a dead ship. Hearing this, Jiang Chen laughed and patted Chunan's shoulder hard. Not bad. By the way, let's talk about something else. Are you interested in serving as the governor of the 6th district? I find that your abilities in some aspects are much better than your ability to fly a helicopter. Are you implicitly reminding me that I'm terrible at flying a helicopter? Chunan made a funny expression and joked. Of course not, I'm serious. Well, you are the boss, and I will follow your orders. But to be honest, compared to the governor of the 6th district, I would rather be the governor of Liuding Town. He did not say this in a joking tone. Chapter 208 Friendly Signals. Jiang Chen pondered for a moment about Chunan's last words, but did not give an answer. The 6th block in Jiading has been included in his territory, which means that the passage from the northwest to Wanghei City is under his control. In addition to the fishbone base in Qingpu and the colony of Shengxiang town in front of Zufeng Highway, the 3 territories form a triangle, and the sphere of influence almost covers all the main roads into Wanghei City from the west. It can be said that half of Wanghei City has fallen into his hands. However, there is an extremely unstable factor that still threatens the safety of his ruling area. That is Liuding Town. That ship-borne electromagnetic gun is simply a demolition artifact, and its power is simply incomparable to the Type 50 vehicle-mounted electromagnetic gun. Although it will not easily tear its face with Jiang Chen, the land overlord, since it exists, it is always a threat. How can others snore beside my bed? If he wants to bring the entire Wanghei City into his sphere of influence, he has to think about Liuding Town. But for now, cooperation is a more profitable option for both parties. In the meeting hall, Jiang Chen met the envoy from Liuding Town. To his surprise, the envoy was actually a lady. The bodyguard following behind him was a white man. Judging from his strong and powerful figure, he should be extraordinary. I think he should be her bodyguard. Jiang Chen's first impression of this female envoy was stunning, and his second impression was fear. Under the high nose bridge, there was a hint of the breath of a superior. Long black gold hair, western body, oriental face, should be a mixed race. Tang Maya, this is her name. It's nice to meet you, the envoy from Liuding Town. I hope you are satisfied with the food and accommodation yesterday. Seeing her enter the door, Jiang Chen smiled and expressed his friendliness, and at the same time, extended his right hand. Because she arrived a little late, Jiang Chen arranged a room for her in the Paradise Island Hotel. Thank you very much for your hospitality. Tang Maya smiled and stretched out her hand with her bright red lips, shaking hands with Jiang Chen. The bionic robot in your hotel is great. Jiang Chen was stunned, and his expression was a little strange. That bionic robot, turns out there is a female version? To his surprise, this envoy lady was unexpectedly bold in her private life. Ahem, just have fun. Please sit down. Jiang Chen smiled, bypassing this somewhat vulgar topic, politely pulled out a chair for her, and invited her to sit down. Nodding and smiling to express gratitude, Tang Maya sat on the chair generously. As for the bodyguard, he stood at the door very consciously. I wonder what news Miss Tang Maya brought from Liuding Town. Sitting on the chair, Jiang Chen asked straight to the point. Of course it's friendly news. Tang Maya smiled and blinked, then took out a document. First of all, it's about trade. Our Liuding Town once signed a trade agreement with the 10-man committee of the 6th block. Now that the owner of the 6th block has changed, I would like to ask Mr. Jiang Chen's opinion. Is this agreement still valid? As she spoke, Tang Maya gently placed the contract on the table. Before the meeting, Jiang Chen roughly glanced at the content of the agreement. Its content was basically to ensure the legitimate interests of Liuding Town merchants in the 6th block and enjoy the same free trade rights as other forces. Of course it's valid. Picking up the contract, Jiang Chen only symbolically glanced at it and gave a straightforward answer. Tang Maya smiled, then put away the contract and crossed her fingers on the desk. In addition, it's a contract about the fishbone base. I wonder if it's appropriate to bring it up on this occasion. A very obvious test. On the surface, Jiang Chen served as the marshal of the military government, and the parliament was still the one that exercised the government's orders. At least in front of outsiders, the sixth block was still open and democratic. Making decisions on behalf of the parliament is already suspected of overstepping one's authority. Now, in the parliament building in the sixth block, discussing the matter of the fishbone base, this is almost a clear question. Is the sixth block your private property? The answer is of course yes. No problem. Let's talk about it together. Jiang Chen said bluntly. Seeing Jiang Chen's reaction, Tang Maya smiled slightly and took out another contract. We are very interested in the food of Fishbone Grain Products Company. Excuse me, you are actually the boss of that company, right? Why do you say that? Jiang Chen smiled. Women's intuition. Tang Maya replied in a half-joking tone. Maybe your intuition is very accurate, but we seem to have strayed from the topic. Jiang Chen spread his hands and did not answer directly, but smiled and avoided the topic. Although he was not very satisfied with Jiang Chen's answer, Tang Maya just smiled and did not continue to dwell on it. This is the trade list. We need canned meat, canned vegetables, beer, sugar, etc. In contrast, we can provide small electronic components such as subcrystals, chips and batteries. I believe you will be satisfied with the price we offer. Jiang Chen carefully scanned the contents of the list and nodded. The price offered by this woman was slightly higher than Zhao Chenwu's. The monthly trade volume was about 500,000, and it would start in the spring of next year. I'm very satisfied with the price you offer. We are also very interested in your chips. However, the name of party beyond the contract is Lucky 32 Casino, not Liuding Town. I wonder if there is any mystery in this? Jiang Chen smiled and signed his name on the agreement directly. Liuding Town is just an aircraft carrier, and Lucky 32 Casino is my asset. Miss Tang smiled and put away the contract. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, and then a look of understanding appeared on his face. So, Miss Tang's status in Liuding Town is similar to my status in Block 6. Two different political systems. There is no comparison. Tang Maya smiled slightly. You can understand that I'm a crew member with a relatively high status. Oligarchy that is not completely dictatorial. Although I don't quite understand it, I think it doesn't hinder our cooperation. So, are there any other interesting suggestions? Jiang Chen smiled. To Jiang Chen's surprise, Tang Maya actually shook her head. That's it. That's it? Didn't they propose the artillery agreement? Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, but soon recovered, stood up with a smile, and announced the end of the meeting. After shaking hands with Tang Maya, Jiang Chen personally escorted her out the door. To be honest, personally, I still prefer to talk to a dictator like you. Standing at the door, Tang Maya suddenly spoke. Oh, just a piece of paper. If it were a 10-member committee, they would chatter for 2 whole days. Compared to a chattering man, I think a straightforward man like you is more attractive. Tang Maya did not hide her admiration for Jiang Chen in her words, and her beautiful eyes looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. Haha, Miss Tang, you are too kind. Jiang Chen smiled modestly, but the upturned corners of his mouth clearly revealed his inner pride. Tang Maya naturally noticed this detail, and the corners of her mouth also outlined a curve. No man will not react to the admiration of a beautiful woman. This is the instinct of males. I have a personal proposal. I wonder if Mr. Jiang Chen is interested? With her beautiful eyes, Tang Maya smiled and approached Jiang Chen, her nose almost touching him. In an extremely ambiguous tone, accompanied by a slightly warm breath, she spoke. Would you like to come to my room tonight? P.S. Not the heroine, but there are benefits. As usual, it will be posted in the group every other day. It still does not affect the plot. Chapter 209 Fait accompli. The next morning, Jiang Chen and Ms. Tang Maya walked out of Paradise Island Hotel side by side. The two walked together, talking and laughing. Jiang Chen sent her to the gate of the outer circle of the 6th block in a gentlemanly manner. If they hadn't seen them walking out of the hotel side by side, no one could guess what had happened between them. But if you look closely, you can find that the two big shots had slightly dark circles under their eyes, as if they didn't sleep well last night. Of course, the lower level people don't need to know about the affairs of the upper level. As for those rumors, let them die on their own. Did you feel comfortable last night? Jiang Chen smiled and said jokingly, "You are better than a bionic robot." Tang Maya pursed her lips and replied in the same joking tone, "Haha, then I will take it as a compliment." Jiang Chen, who has no moral integrity, has never refused such things as temptation, let alone in his territory. So, last night he gladly accepted Tang Maya's invitation and had a friendly fire with the Queen of Liuding Town. Last night's romance was no different from the previous negotiations at the conference table. Both parties just took what they needed. Jiang Chen gained a sense of conquest by pressing the boss level figure of a faction under him. Similarly, as a superior, she enjoyed the feeling of being conquered that she had not enjoyed for a long time. However, this feeling only lasted until dawn. The two of them tacitly kept silent about the details of last night. Just like Jiang Chen has his own harem. As the boss of a faction, Miss Tang Maya, the behind-the-scenes boss of the Lucky 32 casino, also has her own harem. What a pity if you were a small person. Before leaving, Tang Maya stretched out her finger and gently lifted Jiang Chen's chin and said with her beautiful eyes slightly narrowed, "Is it any good for you if I'm a small person?" Jiang Chen smiled evilly, pinched her hand, and gently moved it away. Her hand was pinched, but she didn't blush at all. With a face as thick as Jiang Chen's, she smiled evilly, "I can take you into my harem." When she said this, her whole body was filled with the charm of a female online novel heroine. Jiang Chen just smiled non-committally at her aggressive remarks. "Just kidding, although it's a bit shameless, I don't have that kind of fetish." After a polite farewell, Tang Maya disappeared at the end of the ruined street with the bodyguard. Looking at her back and recalling her last words, Jiang Chen suddenly shuddered involuntarily. Although it was just a fantasy, the idea of a reverse harem is still a bit disgusting from a male's perspective. Returning to the inner circle, Jiang Chen found Chunan, who was cleaning the helicopter on the apron. "How did you enjoy playing last night?" Chunan tightened the faucet and smiled narrowly. "How did you guess?" Jiang Chen shrugged helplessly. The female boss of Lucky 32 Casino, Miss Tang Maya. Her unique hobby is no news in Liuding Town. Chunan threw the rag on the skill, clapped his hands, and looked at Jiang Chen. "Since she has asked you to have sex, I guess the negotiation should be smooth." "It's going well. By the way, she didn't propose a fire agreement, and your guess seems to be wrong." Jiang Chen smiled. Frowning slightly, Chunan pinched his chin and thought for a moment. "Really? It seems that they chose a more cautious approach." "Cautious? Yeah. Maybe it's because they found out from their test that your tough attitude will definitely not compromise. So Tang Maya didn't propose the proposal that would obviously be rejected, but showed her sincerity for cooperation. Can this be tested?" Jiang Chen laughed. "Tang Maya is a smart woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have managed Lucky 32 so well." After a pause, Chunan continued. "On the other hand, they may also be afraid of the power behind you." "Fishbone Grain Products Company?" Jiang Chen said thoughtfully. It was just a cover, but the food he took out became the evidence of that cover, so that everyone believed in its existence. Except for the closest people, no one knew that it was just a fictitious existence, even his own people. Although he no longer needs that cover now. "May I ask, boss, is your identity really just an agent? Is there any connection?" Jiang Chen smiled non-committally. "At least from the perspective of others, your identity is more like the boss of the Fishbone Grain Products Company, and the Fishbone base, compared to a supply station, is more like a military outpost." Hearing this, Jiang Chen's eyes moved slightly. "In any case, now that I have established the existence of this military outpost, even if others want to do something with it, they don't have the ability to do so." "That's right, so they are afraid." Chunan smiled, "because they don't know how strong the company behind you is, whether they helped occupy the 6th block, and what the purpose of entering Wanghei City is. Perhaps it is precisely because of these gaps in intelligence that they have adopted a cautious attitude. At the same time, they should have also considered that the mutants in Site 7 can have a certain restrictive effect on our development. If we accept the artillery agreement, we will definitely use electromagnetic cannons to attack the mutants. If we easily solve the mutant problem, it will not be in the interests of living town on land. Compared with the monthly income of 10,000 sub-crystals, they would rather see us and the mutants fight each other to a loss. Thinking about Chunan's words, Jiang Chen returned to the Parliament building. In any case, Liuding Town's attitude is still friendly, and the mutants in Site 7 have not made any movement. In this way, his power in the end times can also be regarded as entering a relatively stable development period. As for the affairs of the 6th block, he only needs to choose an agent to manage them. The fishbone base is his core. He has been away for so long, it is time to go back. However, in the office, he saw Sun Jiao waiting there with a pout. The expression on her face was a little awkward. After all, did you have a good time last night? Sun Jiao smiled maliciously. Jiang Chen smiled awkwardly, scratched his cheek embarrassedly, and his eyes wandered to the side. Sun Jiao grumbled with a pout. There is still a little apple at home that has not been eaten, and I picked fruits outside casually to eat. The little apple, of course, refers to Yao. Sorry. Knowing that it was useless to say anything at this moment, Jiang Chen chose to admit his mistake honestly, and hugged Sun Jiao. Feeling the body temperature, Sun Jiao's cheeks were slightly red. The expression on her face wavered for a moment, and finally she sighed, and gave up on this topic. Let's talk about business. When are we going back? I'm a little worried about her condition. She was naturally referring to Sun Jiao. Because it was too dangerous, she was still restricted and locked in the basement. Speaking of her sister, Sun Jiao glared at Jiang Chen fiercely. Ahem, the day after tomorrow, I will try to finish everything tomorrow. Knowing that he was in the wrong, Jiang Chen chose to shamelessly ignore Sun Jiao's angry eyes, and after speaking quickly, he hurriedly ran away. Chapter 2. I will get it out of the dormitory in the afternoon. I have a lot of classes in the morning TT. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210. Zhao Chen Wu's choice. The radiation cleanup work in the inner circle is nearing completion. The survivors who settled in the 6th block reacted calmly to the civil war that broke out suddenly and ended quickly, and the wasteland nomads passing by also remained calm. The newly rising power stabilized the chaotic situation with thunderous force. Except for the 10 people who moved their butts, for most people living in the outer circle, life has not changed much. As for death, people die every day in the wasteland. I always thought I had a good eye for people, but I didn't expect that I was still wrong. Zhao Chen Wu sighed and sat opposite Jiang Chen. Do you regret it? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Zhao Chen Wu remained silent. Seeing that he didn't speak, Jiang Chen didn't care, but reached out to pour himself a cup of hot water. Then, he took out a small plastic packaging bag from his pocket, tore it open slowly, and then slowly poured the fine brown powder into the steaming teacup. Looking at the dark brown solution, Zhao Chen Wu's eyes widened, and he swallowed unconsciously. In our place, we call this coffee. Of course I know. Zhao Chen Wu's voice was a little hurried. Do you regret it now? Jiang Chen laughed. Zhao Chen Wu looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. He didn't understand what Jiang Chen meant. Seeing the expression on Zhao Chen Wu's face, Jiang Chen smiled, and then took out another good thing. Under Zhao Chen Wu's wide eyes, the white cube fell into the fragrant coffee. You have a lot of good things. Zhao Chen Wu said with difficulty. That's right. Jiang Chen shrugged and said easily. There are some things I didn't dare to take out before, but now I don't have so many concerns. Are you really just an agent? Zhao Chen Wu smiled bitterly. You are the second person to ask this question. But what I want to say is that it doesn't matter what I am. The important thing is that, as long as you do things for me, I will provide you with these things. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Provided to me? Zhao Chen Wu was stunned and looked at Jiang Chen in disbelief. That's right. Jiang Chen said very straightforwardly. Food, sugar, coffee, tea, and other similar things. I will provide you with a batch of goods every month, and you are responsible for helping me sell these things. The right to operate the food business is in your hands. I will not interfere with your business. I will only send some people to assist you in handling the matters on the account. I don't understand. These things will be very popular in any corner of the wasteland. Why do you give it to me to do it? Jiang Chen said, puzzled. Because I'm optimistic about your ability. I hope to see my products appear in every corner of the wasteland. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's face couldn't help but become strange, and then he showed a slightly playful smile. I didn't expect that we were still a cooperative relationship not long ago, and now I have become your subordinate. It depends on how you understand it. As long as you stay calm, then the Jiao group will still be yours. The significance of the existence of the shackles is just to prevent similar things from happening again. You can still understand the relationship between us as cooperation, and it is a closer cooperation than before. Jiang Chen smiled. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter and extended his hand. Then I wish us a happy cooperation. Jiang Chen shook his hand and said with a smile, happy cooperation. The specific matters of food trade were quickly finalized. Fishbone was responsible for supply, and Jiao Group was responsible for setting up caravans to transport goods to every corner of the wasteland and then bring back other goods or subcrystals. The profits were split 30% and 70%, with Jiao Group taking 30% and Jiang Chen taking 70%. At present, it is tentatively planned to expand the scope of trade to the nearby Su City and Hangzhou City, and officially start in the spring of next year. Holding the electronic contract, Jiang Chen left Jiang Chen's office with a happy face. Fan Cheng, who was waiting at the door, saw the expression on his colleague's face and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seems that Jiang Chen should not be difficult to talk to, otherwise Jiang Chen's expression would not be so happy. Thinking secretly, the fat man knocked on the office door and pushed it open and walked in. Sitting opposite Jiang Chen, Fan Cheng hesitated for a moment and whispered to Test, I wonder why the marshal is looking for me. Although Jiang Chen did not take action against their industries and even gave them a lot of benefits, no one felt relieved. The reason was simple, because they all had the chip implanted in the back of their necks. Now that the situation has just stabilized, Jiang Chen did not take action against their money bags. But what about in the future? There is no guarantee that he will not wait until the situation stabilizes and then take away the subcrystals and factories in their hands by boiling frogs in warm water and then deal with them. That thing was originally used for slaves, and the people who wore it had no ability to resist at all. None of these great counselors thought that this thing would be used on themselves one day. Don't be so nervous. Have a cup of coffee first. Jiang Chen smiled gently, made a cup of coffee for him, and made a casual gesture of invitation. Looking at the coffee in front of him, Fan Cheng's expression was more exciting than Jiang Chen's, and his eyes were almost popping out. The hand holding the cup was shaking a little, and he excitedly raised the cup to his mouth and took a sip. That long-lost taste. I understand why Jiang Chen was so excited when he went out. Fan Cheng sighed and suddenly smiled bitterly. Considering the cooperation between Jiao Group and Fishbone Base, it is obvious that the two sides must have reached a cooperation agreement. For example, the cup of coffee in front of him. Haha, I believe you will be more excited than him when you leave this door. Jiang Chen laughed. Fan Cheng's face was full of shock, and he sat up straight, but then he shrank back with a sneer. It's definitely not a food business. Having two food sellers compete with each other to lower prices is far less profitable than a monopoly. Jiang Chen smiled and took a sip of his coffee. Although it's not a food business, the profit is not lower than that of a food business. Hearing this, Fan Cheng showed an interested expression on his face. Oh, what business is it? I'm going to contract all the reconstruction tasks of the inner circle of the 6th block to you. Jiang Chen gently dropped this heavy bomb. Fan Cheng's eyes widened and looked at Jiang Chen in disbelief. Or, why, no confidence? Jiang Chen laughed. That will cost a lot of money. Fan Cheng said with difficulty. Don't worry, you will be the one who pays for the project. Jiang Chen put down his cup and crossed his fingers on the table. The buildings destroyed in the Civil War will be paid for by the Crimson Chamber of Commerce's assets in the 6th block, a total of 1.5 million subcrystals. According to the progress of the project, 10% of the project payment will be paid for every 10% completed. Deal. Fan Cheng answered without hesitation, with a nervous expression, as if he was afraid that Jiang Chen would regret it. Jiang Chen smiled, without saying anything, and took out the electronic contract directly. After carefully checking the contents of the contract, Fan Cheng pressed his fingerprint on it. To be honest, I'm confused. After putting away the contract, Fan Cheng couldn't help but whispered, "What's the confusion?" Jiang Chen put the electronic contract in his pocket and leaned back in his chair, saying casually. After hesitating for a moment, Fan Cheng lowered his head and spoke. "If I were in power, I would confiscate the property of all other councillors. So it's a bit too difficult for you businessmen to sit at the same table and rule this area for so long. You should just be businessmen in the future. Don't you love money?" Fan Cheng said with a wry smile. As soon as he said that, in his surprised eyes, Jiang Chen suddenly laughed. "The entire 6th block is already mine, so does it matter to me who has the subcrystal in the 6th block? History has proved countless times that it is better to put a business in the hands of an organization or in the hands of a private person. Rather than being a miser who hoards subcrystal, Jiang Chen is more willing to share these small profits. This is not only a means of winning people's hearts. More importantly, driven by interests, these ambitious businessmen will naturally expand their territory for him." Chapter 211 ending. Jiang Chen called the 5 councillors to his office for a talk, and when they left, they all had happy faces. Jiang Chen solved all the troubles with just a few words, which would have taken 2 or 3 days of arguing over the benefits to be equally distributed. The food trade is monopolized by the Zhao Group, and from now on, it will start recruiting employees and caravan guards in the outer circle market, and at the same time place an order with the machinery repair shop in the factory area. A total of 20 modified pickup trucks powered by subcrystals will be ordered as vehicles for transporting goods. These pickup trucks will be armed and modified in Zhao Chenwu's military factory, with heavy machine guns welded on the top and protective steel armor welded on the outside. I remember that, when Zhao Chenwu took him to visit the military factory, he said, "Unless the military purchase bill is voted through by the 6th District Council, my factory will start producing these difficult things." Now there are not so many troubles. The damn round table has been split in half. The parliament will never discuss such boring issues again, and Jiang Chen's words are imperial decrees. When all the military power is in the hands of one person, naturally no one can pass any ridiculous motion to check and balance him. The order of 23 power armors, with a total price of 110,000 subcrystals, will be delivered to the Fishbone Base in March next year. Jiang Chen prepaid Zhao Chenwu a 20% deposit, and Zhao Chenwu will use this deposit to expand the production line and recruit more workers. At the same time, Jiang Chen instructed Zhao Chenwu to focus the weapons research and development of the Zhao Group on the development of new power armors, and specialize in this project. It is imperative to develop a T4 power armor with stronger mobility, larger ammunition load, and more powerful firepower. Not only the Zhao Group, but also the other 4 councillors have their own benefits. Fan Cheng's Metal Shell Chamber of Commerce has obtained orders for the reconstruction of the damaged buildings in the inner circle and the wall repair project. At the same time, Jiang Chen also gave him the construction project of incorporating the Fishbone Base into the 6th block power grid. Before the Civil War, Luoyang's coastline company was mainly engaged in small commodity business, trade in Suzhou and Hangzhou, and a small part of the pharmaceutical market. The nuclear explosion in the inner circle almost wiped out half of his shops. Although the reconstruction costs would be paid by the assets of the Crimson Chamber of Commerce, the goods lost in the nuclear explosion were not covered by the compensation. However, just when he was on the verge of bankruptcy, Jiang Chen helped him. He integrated his fragmented land in the inner circle and allocated him a large piece of land to help him complete the industrial transformation to build the largest entertainment city in this wasteland, with one-stop services such as casinos, hotels, and special projects. Huawei's Starry Sky Technology Company still maintains its original business, digestion, and improvement of pre-war technology. However, Jiang Chen gave them a research direction, the Yunzi 51 helicopter. The 6th block has never been able to develop Air Force. On the one hand, it is because it really failed to obtain relevant pre-war technology, and on the other hand, it is the ridiculous balance of power, because I don't have a helicopter, you are not allowed to develop it, otherwise I will join the other 8 people to sanction you. This problem no longer exists. Jiang Chen prepaid Huawei a deposit of 20,000 subcrystals. The money will be used to update research equipment, hire a hunter team, to explore pre-war military research facilities to collect information, and so on. In addition to the above 4 members, even Kang Zhe, who was the first to stand up and sing a different tune from Jiang Chen at the first meeting, got benefits. Jiang Chen's forgiveness made this guy, who had spent several days in anxiety, burst into tears of gratitude. However, Jiang Chen did not care about his gratitude and told him in a very relaxed tone that, as long as he was obedient, he would get benefits. The development of the 6th block has been on the right track, and it is naturally time to return to the fishbone base. After all, that is the core of his strength. The Yunzi 51 was temporarily left in the 6th block by Jiang Chen. The technicians of Star Technology Company will use professional instruments to scan various parts of the helicopter to obtain relevant technical parameters. As for Chunan, who is a pilot, he was naturally left in the 6th block by Jiang Chen. Considering that the reorganization of the upper and lower houses in the 6th block still needs people to coordinate, Jiang Chen granted Chunan the status of agent, replaced him with some of the rights of the marshal, and left him more than 200 soldiers to maintain order. After dealing with these, Jiang Chen took the remaining dozens of soldiers and left the 6th block. Finally, I'm going home. Walking on the road, Sun Jiao stretched lazily. Yes, I'm finally home. Jiang Chen smiled and looked at the sewer in trance with some nostalgia. This underground passage, which was rebuilt in cooperation with Zhao Chenwu, is now completely under the control of Jiang Chen and guarded by elite soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons. After seeing Jiang Chen and Sun Jiao approaching, the 5 soldiers on duty stood at attention and saluted, then opened the iron gate of the entrance. Speaking of which, a lot of things have happened in the past 6 months. Walking on the dry concrete road, Sun Jiao suddenly spoke. Yes, you can only say it, right? Sun Jiao pouted and rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen beside her. Smiling, Jiang Chen naturally took her little hand. Sun Jiao blushed, but soon returned to normal. Are you blushing? No. It's obvious that we have done that so many times. Ah, you are a cat. Jiang Chen shook his right hand in pain and exaggeratedly put it to his mouth and blew it. Just now, this chick actually pinched him. After being together for so long, he almost forgot that she was a pervert with a muscle strength of 44. Although her slender arms did not show any muscle grooves. Sun Jiao glared at him in shame and anger. You are going to die, talking about this in a place like this. As she said that, Sun Jiao glanced ahead, where there was no trace of the team. The leader of the team was Cheng Weiguo. In response to the 2 deliberately falling behind, the guy was very sensible and led dozens of soldiers to speed up the march, leaving this quiet space for the 2. Ahem. Anyway, everyone has gone far away. Jiang Chen smiled and put his arm around her waist. She did not resist Jiang Chen's intimate behavior, and the 2 walked together in this not so romantic sewer. Compared to the first time I walked through here, this place has been transformed into a different look. There are fluorescent light strips on the corners of the walls, emitting a cold blue light, illuminating the dark sewer. The river channel flowing with sewage has been sealed, and a layer of polyethylene aluminum alloy partition has been covered on it. The fork in the road is blocked by a polyethylene protective door, eliminating the possibility of bandits or cannibal tribes roaming here. Speaking of which, what is your appendix already? Why ask that? Sun Jiao pouted and asked. I want to see if I have the strength to push you. Jiang Chen said half jokingly. Hearing this, Sun Jiao's face turned red again, but soon it turned into a smirk and showed the ep on her wrist. Asterisk 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 username, Sun Jiao, muscle strength. 49 bone strength. 67 reflex nerves. 50 brain cell activity. 13. Asterisk 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 his weight. I remember you were 44, 61, 40? Looking at the fluorescent light on the screen, Jiang Chen asked in a daze. Chapter 212. That smile. Muscle strength increased by 5 points, bone strength increased by 6 points, and reflex nerves increased by a full 10 points. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Muscle strength. 30 bone strength. 29 reflex nerves. 32 brain cell activity. 14. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jiang Chen silently looked down at his ep. The gap was still a bit big. Muscle strength and reflex nerves were not bad, only a dozen points behind, but the bone strength gap was almost twice as big. I thought I was almost catching up. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly and turned off the ep helplessly. While you are making progress, I'm not falling behind either. Sun Jiao lifted her black hair and said proudly. It seems that the gap is getting wider and wider now. Jiang Chen sighed. The attribute measurement mechanism of EPIs set the ideal situation. The highest level that humans can achieve in a certain ability is 100, and the baby is 0, which is a quantitative evaluation of the user's current ability. Under the premise of not generating reproductive isolation, the limit that humans can reach is 100 through DNA sequence improvement. If the improvement leads to reproductive isolation, then we can no longer be called human beings, but can only be named as another species. When the index exceeds 50, the difficulty of improvement will become higher and higher. Although Sun Jiao's attribute point improvement speed does not seem as scary as Jiang Chen's doubling in a few months, it is actually much more difficult than his. Just like in online games, it is far less difficult to upgrade from level 1 to level 10 than from level 50 to level 51. Seeing Jiang Chen sigh, Sun Jiao thought his self-esteem was hurt, so she whispered to comfort him. In fact, there are many definitions of strong. Physical fitness is only one of them. Many people in the wasteland are physically weak, but with superb marksmanship, they can still defeat people with physical fitness far better than themselves. There are also people who are proficient in mechanical knowledge and make various auxiliary props to help themselves gain powerful combat power. There are also hackers who are proficient in computer technology. By hacking into the robots wandering in the ruins, they make them fight for themselves. Then which kind of strength do I belong to? Jiang Chen smiled arrogantly. Giving Jiang Chen a look of complacency, Sun Jiao pursed her lips and looked into the darkness deep in the sewer ahead. Don't you know it yourself? I just want to hear how my woman praises me. Jiang Chen said this without blushing. He has always been a person who likes to show off. With a curve at the corner of her lips, Sun Jiao gave Jiang Chen a look and said in a half serious and half joking tone, your strength lies in your ability to gain the favor of others. In other words, is your charm value maximum doubt? This statement is very interesting, and Jiang Chen's face showed a smile that he couldn't help laughing. For example, you, not only me, but also Yao, even Lin Ling, and everyone in the base. Why don't you just say leadership directly? Jiang Chen said. It's different from leadership. Think about it carefully. Have you ever used the hard constraints of the slave chip to force someone to submit, even once? People recognize the order you bring and believe that following you will lead to a brighter future, so they will obey you willingly. It's a great ability to make so many people willing to fight for you. Sun Jiao said with a playful wink. Hearing this, Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then smiled, and then sighed in an exaggerated manner. Why, are you still not satisfied with this ability? Very satisfied, but it turns out that I still have some regrets. Regrets? I can't tie you to the chair and avenge the first time we met. Jiang Chen smiled evilly and leaned close to her ear. Sun Jiao's cheeks flushed, but she didn't dodge. Oh, don't you think being tied up is fun? She smiled like a little devil, leaned close to Jiang Chen's ear and said, and blew mischievously. Well, I'm not an M. Although she is not opposed to trying new things. Looking at Jiang Chen's profile, Sun Jiao's mouth curled up. You've changed. Ahem. I wasn't an M before. Jiang Chen said with a frown. Not in that aspect. Sun Jiao laughed out loud, paused, and then teased in a teasing tone. You've matured a lot since you first came here. Then which me do you like more? Jiang Chen smiled. I like both. Although you were also delicious at that time. But, it turns out that being mature is more attractive. Sun Jiao said with her index finger on her lower lip. What the hell is delicious? Jiang Chen showed a helpless expression on his face. But speaking of it, in just 5 months, he has indeed grown a lot. Originally, he was just a young man who had just entered the society, and he could be said to have achieved nothing in both career and love. If he had not obtained the magical ability to travel through time, he might still be curled up in that apartment building, or even have returned to his hometown in disgrace, becoming an unemployed person with a high degree. Not to mention buying a house. I'm afraid that he has to rely on his parents for food and clothing. Looking back from this perspective now, it is really a bit melancholy. Looking at Sun Jiao's lovely posture, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile and teased. You have changed too. Oh. How have I changed? Sun Jiao put her hands on her hips and pretended to be domineering. Too many. Jiang Chen laughed and stretched out his fingers to count. For example, I have become more civilized, no longer licking my fingers after eating canned food, learning to match clothes, learning to be considerate of others, and even learning to knit a scarf. The corners of Sun Jiao's mouth rose slightly because of pride. Which change of mind do you like the most? My breasts are a little bigger. Seriously. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen and stretched out her hand to pinch him. Jiang Chen dodged this unthreatening attack with a casual look and said with a sly smile. From arrogant to coquettish. Arrogant? Coquettish? Sun Jiao was stunned. Was it because of the cultural gap? She didn't understand the meaning of these two words, nor the meaning of the words they formed. If it's a little difficult to understand, you can understand it as you've become more feminine. Hearing this, Sun Jiao's face suddenly turned red, and she looked around in a panic, and embarrassedly used her fingertips to circle her temples. Feminine? What? Didn't I have it before? Jiang Chen smiled and didn't answer. Chatting is indeed easy to pass the time. Different lights can be seen in the distance. The ladder at the entrance of the sewer has long been replaced by a wide elevator. After approaching the entrance, Jiang Chen reached out and pressed the button on the wall. Now that we have dealt with things here, are you going back there? Stepping into the elevator, Sun Jiao said with a little reluctance. Yeah. Jiang Chen nodded and followed her in. As if she had expected this answer, Sun Jiao did not try to persuade her to stay, but just pouted her lips slightly and whispered. Speaking of which, what is this place to you? Jiang Chen was stunned. He did not expect Sun Jiao to ask this question. However, the pause only lasted for a second. Jiang Chen smiled gently and reached out to gently rub her hair. At first it was just a gold mine, but now it should be considered a second home. Hearing this, Sun Jiao's face showed a bright smile. That smile was very beautiful. Chapter 213, Runaway Ting Ting. After walking out of the elevator, Jiang Chen was warmly welcomed by all the survivors of the fishbone base. The snow was heavy, but it did not cool people's enthusiasm at all. There was even a girl who presented flowers to Jiang Chen. The first few survivors who joined the base were refugees from the 6th block. They suffered from hunger, disease, and contempt in the slums, struggling to survive. It can be said that they did not have any good feelings towards the high and mighty 10-man committee. Although they have nothing to do with the 6th block now, they still felt proud that Jiang Chen had taken over the 6th block. Jiang Chen smiled and waved to the people, and then went into the community center with Sun Jiao. When he came to the office of the logistics department, Jiang Chen found the director Wang Qing. The remuneration of the Black Blood Mercenary Group has been paid in full, a total of 11,000 sub-crystals. Because he was worried that his base would be affected by the civil war, Luo Yang had already returned to the 6th block with his men. Regarding the trade with Liuding Town, he left an agent to discuss with us. Hearing Wang Qing's report, Jiang Chen nodded. Jiang Chen had handed over all the food business in the 6th block and outside Wanghai City to Zhao Chenwu. As for Liuding Town, since it had already signed a trade agreement with Tang Maya, Jiang Chen directly hired the Black Blood Mercenary Group and asked Luo Yang to escort the food to the aircraft carrier and then transport it back to Asia Crystal and the customized chips. As for the details of the trade, Jiang Chen directly handed it over to Wang Qing to worry about. He believed that she had enough experience in this regard. On the other hand, more than 100 survivors have recently joined the Fishbone base, most of whom are survivors from Qingpu, and some are from Sun Jiao, which is adjacent to Qingpu. Jiang Chen naturally expressed a welcome attitude towards the new joiners, but the housing at the Fishbone base was a little tight. Because the construction team's work focus has been tilted towards the fortifications on the banks of the Taipu River, the construction of the new land at the Fishbone base has slowed down. However, as the pressure from the mutants has eased, Lu Huosheng has returned to the base with the engineering team. I believe that the housing problem will be solved soon. That Luo Yang, did you say anything before leaving? After hesitating for a moment, Wang King whispered. He said you were cunning. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Then I'll take it as a compliment. If he had received the news of the civil war at that time, he would have taken his men back to the 6th block. Although there were not many people, they were all veterans who had experienced many wars. With these more than 70 mercenaries, it would be much more rewarding to make some money in the civil war than the mere 11,000 subcrystals. After explaining all the relevant matters, Jiang Chen walked out of the office and returned to the villa with Sun Jiao, who was waiting outside. After the last interrogation, Sun Jiao was locked up in the basement by Jiang Chen. If it was an ordinary stranger, it would be fine, but she turned out to be Sun Jiao's sister. Considering his relationship with Sun Jiao, this Sun Jiao was also his sister-in-law. How are you going to treat my sister? Sun Jiao asked in a low voice on the way to the basement. To be honest, I don't know. Biting her lip slightly, Sun Jiao wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't say it. Jiang Chen secretly glanced at Sun Jiao's profile and said nothing more. The two walked to the door of the basement in silence and pushed it open. Big pervert, are you finally back? Linling sat in front of the computer, typing something on the touchpad intently, and said without turning her head. Before leaving for the front line, Jiang Chen had asked her to study why Sun Jiao had lost her childhood memories and even didn't remember Sun Jiao at all. Considering her unreasonable fanaticism for faith, Jiang Chen suspected that she had been brainwashed or hypnotized. Ignoring Linling's venomous tongue, Jiang Chen glanced at Sun Jiao floating in the incubator. Are there any results? Linling flashed a smug smile on her face and finally tapped a few keys. Of course, who do you think I am? A holographic image in the shape of a human brain appeared on the projection device. Linling got up from the chair with a whoosh and walked to the side of the holographic image. After scanning with special equipment, I found a nanochip in the hippocampus of her brain. Its function is to block the external nervous system from reading part of the hippocampus, which is equivalent to sealing her childhood memories. As she spoke, Linling reached out and tapped on the holographic image, magnifying the chip hidden in the hippocampus. Is there any way to remove this chip? Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Of course there is, but it's difficult. Linling sighed and said. Seeing that this always arrogant cyborg scientist said it was difficult, Sun Jiao couldn't help but show an anxious look on her face. She couldn't help but step forward and grab Linling's shoulders, begging. But there is still a way, right? Please, I don't want my sister to become someone else's puppet. If there is anything I can help with, just tell me. I will definitely. Linling felt a little embarrassed by Sun Jiao's earnest eyes. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she looked away, interrupting her and whispering. The chip has been in her head since she was a child. If we want to remove the chip without damaging her brain, even the pre-war medical level cannot guarantee a 100% success rate, not to mention here. So what's the solution? Jiang Chen asked calmly. The easiest way is to find the person who implanted the chip, remove the control authority, and then put the chip into permanent dormancy. Can't we use something like M to get rid of it directly? Jiang Chen couldn't help asking. Hearing this, Linling couldn't help but hold her forehead. Things like electromagnetic pulses are ineffective against nanoscale electronic components. When the size of the device and the sensor is much smaller than the microwave wavelength, the microwave frequency cannot couple to the device with enough energy to cause damage. I say, how did you learn physics? Aren't you a college student over there? Jiang Chen's old face couldn't help but blush, and he forced an explanation. We don't learn this stuff over there. Sun Jiao looked at her sister in the culture tank and suddenly said, just catch the person who implanted the chip, right? Even if he is caught, I don't think he will necessarily hand over the control authority honestly. Jiang Chen frowned and said with some difficulty, then force him to hand it over. Sun Jiao's face flashed a trace of ruthlessness, and her clenched fists trembled with anger. Looking at the expression on Sun Jiao's face, Jiang Chen sighed. It seems that the war with the Twilight Church is inevitable, although from the beginning, there seems to be no room for the two sides to shake hands and make peace. I will help you. Jiang Chen held Sun Jiao's fist and comforted her softly. Yeah. Sun Jiao's cheeks flushed slightly, and she lowered her head. TSK, it's too infuriating, this pair of dogs and bitches. Linling pouted. She was very dissatisfied with the two people ignoring her and showing affection in front of her, so that her heartbeat began to accelerate. Wait, why would the mechanical heart speed up? Linling was shocked, but when she came to her senses, the control of her body had been taken away by the guest living in her body. Ah. Come on, help me, I can't control the power in my body. Chapter 214, 4-dimensional transmitter. Linling bent over, holding her belly, and began to shake violently. Judging from her posture and tone, she was a very shameless person. What's wrong with you? Jiang Chen was startled, but before he could react, Linling had already moved. Like a leopard, Linling pounced on Sun Jiao. Sun Jiao was caught off guard and fell to the ground, leaning against the wall, while Linling rode on her waist with a hollow and strange red light in her eyes. What are you going to do? Sun Jiao stretched out her hand to hold Linling's arm and said angrily. But when she saw the red light in her eyes, Sun Jiao suddenly reacted. This was not Linling, but Tingting who was living in her body. Mine. A hollow voice. What nonsense are you talking about? Sun Jiao's face flushed, and she held Tingting's hand tightly. The power of the cyborg was unexpectedly great, and Sun Jiao couldn't even push it away with her strength. Looking at Linling's usual timid appearance, it was really hard to imagine that this body actually contained such a huge power. Tingting didn't know why, but she suddenly went berserk. Seeing Sun Jiao being thrown down, Jiang Chen hurried over, hugged Linling with both hands, and tried to move this guy away from Sun Jiao. For a moment, the scene was extremely chaotic. At this moment, Yao, who had been delivering meals to Linling these days, suddenly opened the door and walked in with delicious meals. When she saw the two people wrestling together, the cute little lolly was stunned at the time and froze there at a loss. What happened? Jiang Chen noticed the little rabbit taking off his shoes with his peripheral vision and immediately turned his head to look at Yao, panting for help. Yao, come and help me, bring the sedative. Oh no, just bring the electrostatic device. Okay. Yao nodded vigorously, hurriedly put the food plate on the cabinet beside her, and then ran to the side of the operating table with a click, anxiously groping among the tools. I don't know which one it is. Woo. Yao, who had been searching for a long time, but couldn't find it, was so anxious that she almost cried. Fuck, I can't stand it anymore. Sun Jiao's face turned red, and she burst into swear words. Can I tear her apart? Is this considered a fire in the harem? Jiang Chen tried to comfort Sun Jiao with a smile, and at the same time, tried his best to control Linling who suddenly went berserk for no reason. However, at this moment, Linling's movement suddenly stopped, and the red light in her eyes became even more intense. Jiang Chen was shocked. Oh no, it's the crane particle ray. Then help me get her away quickly. Sun Jiao didn't know what the crane particle ray was, but Jiang Chen had seen the power of that thing, but he didn't know if it was useful to humans. He gritted his teeth, and Jiang Chen's eyes were also covered with a layer of red dots. Frenzy. The power instantly increased by 20 points. Linling's face suddenly flushed. The pressure on her chest made her whole body loosen up, and she fell backwards in Jiang Chen's arms. In a hurry, Jiang Chen didn't notice what he was holding. Seeing that he finally got Linling off Sun Jiao, he immediately stopped frenzy. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, a red light brushed his bangs and shot towards the ceiling. The highly penetrating clean particles did not leave any traces on the wall, but they instantly killed all the electrical appliances in the room, and the lights dimmed instantly. Wow. The basement suddenly became dark, and Yao threw away the electrostatic device in his hand. Sun Jiao stood up with a heavy breath, stretched her muscles, and stared fiercely at Linling, who had slumped in Jiang Chen's arms. But, due to the damage of the circuit, the culture tank activated the emergency response. The hatch slowly opened, the culture fluid spilled all over the floor, and Sun Jiao fell to the ground. Seeing this, Jiang Chen was stunned, and then silently took out his pistol. The EP was broken, and he couldn't control Sun Jiao's mechanical arm. If she suddenly attacked at this time, he could only shoot at her hands and feet. Sun Jiao also stared blankly at Sun Jiao, who was lying on the ground. Under her gaze, Sun Jiao's eyelids moved and slowly opened. The culture medium emitted a faint fluorescence, and with this faint light, she looked at Sun Jiao dimly. Sister. Taking out the graphene memory card in the original EP, Jiang Chen replaced it with a new EP. The crane particles seemed to have damaged the chip in Sun Jiao's brain, which was a pleasant surprise. Seeing the two sisters hugging each other, Jiang Chen's face also showed a sincere smile of blessing. However, things seemed far from that simple. After recovering her memory, Sun Jiao's mind seemed to be in some kind of confusion, and her childhood memories suddenly emerged, so that she impacted her current memories. It was as if two people were fighting in her mind. One person represented the memory of the time in the shelter, and the other was the memory of being indoctrinated with religious beliefs after joining the Church of Twilight. Specifically, her expression was sometimes ferocious, sometimes weak, and she shrank in Sun Jiao's arms, shaking all over. But one thing was clear, that is, when she saw Jiang Chen, her expression was always fixed in fear. Did you go too far last time? Jiang Chen thought awkwardly. Mental trauma can only be healed by time. Jiang Chen certainly didn't mean torture. For safety reasons, he turned off the function of her left arm prosthesis. Leaving time for the two sisters, Jiang Chen pulled Yao and carried the unconscious Linling out of the basement. When Linling woke up from her coma, it was already dusk. The red light in her eyes had faded, and when she saw Jiang Chen sitting next to the bed, Linling's face suddenly blushed. Have you always been with me? Linling lowered her head and whispered. Well, has that tinting returned to normal? Not noticing the unnatural tone of her voice, Jiang Chen, who was a little tired, rubbed his temple and asked casually. It's under control. Controlling my body seems to consume a lot of energy. She has fallen asleep now. Linling swallowed her saliva and nodded vigorously. Relieved, Jiang Chen stood up from the chair. Have a good rest. Leaving this sentence, Jiang Chen walked towards the door. Wait a minute. Linling suddenly called him. Stopping, Jiang Chen looked back at Linling. What's the matter? Are you going back to the present world? Well, probably tomorrow morning. I want mango pudding. Linling said bluntly and licked the corner of her mouth excitedly. According to my review of historical documents, there must be that thing on Earth in 2015. What a trouble. If I remember it next time I come back. Just about to refuse, but for some reason, Jiang Chen suddenly lost the interest in bullying Linling. It seems that she is more adorable when she smiles. She was about to show a frustrated expression, but when she heard Jiang Chen's last sentence, Linling raised the corner of her mouth proudly and sat up from the bed. You'd better take a rest. No, pudding is more important. Wiping the corner of her mouth, Linling stepped on her slippers and ran to the side of the test bench, taking down a strange thing. Then she ran back and held it in front of Jiang Chen, as if offering a treasure. Jiang, I'll remind you. What is this thing? Jiang Chen frowned in confusion and fiddled with the fingernail-sized chip in his hand. The crystallization of technology. Speak human language. In short, it's a communication chip. But it's quite special. Well, how should I put it? Anyway, insert it into EP, and you can communicate across time dimensions. Chapter 215 Friendship Across Dimensions? 4-dimensional transmitter. This is the name Linling gave to the chip. In short, this thing is simply awesome. Because at this moment, Jiang Chen is standing in the villa in the present world, using it to have a video call with Linling. With the subcrystal slice as the core of the chip, the clean particles are stimulated by a special method and sent to the chip of another time axis, and then the signal is analyzed in a special way. since only a special wave is transmitted, rather than a physical object with mass. Information can be transmitted between the two chips without the help of a jump bracelet. Quickly point the camera out the window. I want to see the tree. Linling said to Jiang Chen excitedly. What's so good about the tree? Jiang Chen walked to the balcony helplessly and showed Linling the vegetation planted in his backyard. Woo, I really want to go to your place. If you evolve from a cyborg to a robot, I can bring you over. Forget it. Linling shrank her neck. If you completely abandon your body and even the DNA factor that proves the survival of your race, can you still be called a human being? Can we go to a more open place to have a look? Jiang Chen wanted to refuse because he thought it was troublesome, but when he saw the reluctant expression on Linling's face, he sighed and walked to the roof. Since the villa is a river view room, you can just stand on the roof and look at the most green section of the Huangpu River. Leaning against the railing, Jiang Chen pointed the ep on his wrist at the Huangpu River in the distance. The evening breeze was cool. It was December, and the present Wanghei city had been in winter for more than a month, but Jiang Chen, who was only wearing a coat, did not feel any cold. Since El Nino has reached the extremely strong standard, Wanghei city will have a warm winter this year. There were lights floating on the river, which belonged to the passing ships. The lights on both sides of the river were bright, and the lights of cars on the cross river bridge were flowing continuously, a prosperous scene. Seeing the intoxicated expression on Linling's face, Jiang Chen felt a little sour in his nose for some reason. For people living in the end times, this kind of scene can be regarded as heaven. Well, I've decided. Linling's face suddenly showed a firm expression. Oh. I want to research a method that allows you to carry living things through the time axis. Jiang Chen smiled and said casually. Then come on, if you can really research that thing, you can eat pudding all over the world. If he can carry people through time, he can also fulfill his promise to Sun Jiao. In the abandoned experimental elementary school, he promised Sun Jiao that one day he would take her to visit the school he had attended and show her how people lived and how they got along before the war. Linling on the ep screen sucked her saliva in a very unpresentable way, and her eyes had completely turned into puddings, shining. Who is she? Noticing Jiang Chen's return, Aisha came to the roof. She walked gently to his side and looked at the beautiful girl on the screen curiously. So beautiful. Long silver hair, fair skin, and a face like a porcelain doll. She is a cyborg. Her name is Linling. Jiang Chen gently placed his hand on Aisha's waist and introduced her. Great, you have another woman over there, hoo-hoo. Linling jumped up, as if she had discovered a new world, looking at Jiang Chen with ill intentions. However, Jiang Chen had a very indifferent expression, because this was not a secret, and only Linling didn't know it. Hello, can I know your name? Aisha greeted her with a gentle smile. She could vaguely guess that the girl on the screen should be Jiang Chen's woman in the future world, and she didn't mind. If possible, she really hoped to have a good relationship with her and get along harmoniously. Woo woo. Aisha's gentle smile seemed to shock Linling, so that the poisonous tongue she had organized in her mind for a long time was stuck in her throat, and she was embarrassed to say it. It was the first time that someone smiled at her so gently. Were people in the past always so gentle? My name is Linling. My name is Aisha. Aisha stretched out her finger and gently touched the screen. Nice to meet you. Me too. Linling blushed and scratched her head embarrassedly. Can I be good friends with you? Aisha smiled gently. Well. Nodding shyly, Linling's fingers played with the corners of her clothes, and a rare expression appeared on her face. Looking at the two people who became good friends, Jiang Chen smiled. This feeling is really wonderful, a friendship that transcends time. Due to technical reasons, this chip cannot communicate for a long time. After asking Linling to tell Sun Jiao about the chip and leave him a message if anything important happens in the base, Jiang Chen hung up the call. Is she your woman? Aisha blinked her blue eyes and asked beside Jiang Chen. How is it possible? Jiang Chen said without thinking. But I feel that she likes you very much. Hearing Aisha's words, Jiang Chen was stunned, and the expression on his face became strange. It's probably because of Stockholm Syndrome. He seems to be getting better and better to her recently. In the past, he seemed to bully her for fun. Hearing Jiang Chen's answer, Aisha just smiled gently and didn't continue the topic. A woman's intuition is not wrong, even if it's across dimensions. Speaking of which, I haven't been back for so long. Do you miss me? Jiang Chen suddenly lowered his head and leaned close to Aisha's ear, grinning. Hearing this, Aisha's pretty face became slightly hot. Let's have dinner first. Aisha lowered her little head meekly and whispered. Can't we eat together? 1. Eat together? Aisha's pretty face quickly turned red like an apple, and her azure blue pupils became more and more flustered. Without a doubt, it must be another strange game. After dinner, Aisha went to take a shower. After putting the dishes into the dishwasher, Jiang Chen came to the study, logged into the computer, and checked his email. As he expected, Robert sent the next plan to his email. The email was sent 3 days ago. The Irish little brother performed very well. I can't help but want to give him a raise, although I don't know if he will have the chance to spend it. Ahem. Let's get to the point. Now we can enter the second stage of the plan. I have already said hello there. When are you leaving? With his fingers on the keyboard, Jiang Chen thought for a while, then typed a reply. In December. After clicking the send button, Jiang Chen leaned back in the computer chair and closed his eyes for a while. After thinking for a moment, he took out his mobile phone and called Zheng Hongji, the director of the food processing factory under his name. Hello, boss, what's up? From the sound of his voice, he should have been doing well recently. Nothing, just asking you, have you got the important export qualification? It's already been done, and the new production line has been set up, but it hasn't been put into production yet because we haven't found the market. Zheng Hongji said with a little embarrassment. Recently, the food processing industry has been very depressed. Pork prices remain high, and major manufacturers have reduced production in the hope of surviving this period of industry winter. However, at this time, the boss actually proposed to expand the production line. Although he didn't say it, in Zheng Hongji's opinion, this is really a move that will ruin the family. However, his concerns are obviously unnecessary, because these things produced are not for people in this world to eat anyway. Jiang Chen has registered a shell company in the Panu Islands. As long as he makes a phone call, orders from the left hand will fly to the right hand like snowflakes. The shell company will purchase large quantities of canned food produced by the Xinjiang food processing factory, and then store them in the warehouse, waiting for Jiang Chen to transport them to the end of the world. The amount of food ordered is getting bigger and bigger. Out of careful consideration, Jiang Chen decided to complete the food transportation in that small country in the future. Anyway, it will soon become his backyard. The new production line will be put into production tomorrow. But, out of consideration for the factory's responsibility, Zheng Hongji wanted to persuade the boss, but Jiang Chen continued without giving him any reason. No buts. Tomorrow you will receive an order worth about 5 million. Work hard. I have already negotiated the business. Laughing, Jiang Chen hung up the phone, then edited a text message and sent it to the trustee of the offshore company. Putting down the phone in a daze, Zheng Hongji touched his nose and smiled foolishly. Did something good happen? Hongji looked at the expression on her husband's face and couldn't help but feel happy for him. Haha, Zheng Hongji laughed and threw away the phone, hugged his wife, and kissed her hard. The factory's sales have been found. Giving her husband a blank look, Hongji stretched out her finger and poked his chest. You look so excited. It's not your factory anymore. What do you know? Zheng Hongji said dissatisfiedly, glancing at his wife. I built the factory myself. No matter whether the shareholder's name is mine or not, he is my own son. Seeing the radiant look on her husband's face, Hongji also smiled sincerely. Not long ago, the family was facing the crisis of being crushed by huge debts. At that time, there was no smile on his face, and he looked like the sky was falling all day long. But fortunately, the family is back on track now. Thanks to that noble man. Now you are working for others, you have to be more careful, and don't make any mistakes. After all, he is also the benefactor of our family. Hongji straightened his collar for her husband, admonishing him with a happy face. Of course, you know my temper, Zheng Hongji said with his head held high. Little Jiajia tilted her little head and looked at her father and mother with a confused look. She didn't quite understand the conversation between adults. Recently, there are no more fierce uncles coming to their door. Dad has become more cheerful, and mom has a lot more smiles on her face. Yesterday, she took her to the playground to play. It seems that after the big brother came, everything in the family became happy. The current timeline has reached December 2015, and this chapter was written on November 6th. This feeling is really subtle. Chapter 216 Recent Situation. Unlike the tension in the end of the world, the development in the present world has been stable. For emerging internet technology companies like Futureman Technology, the government's attitude is still supportive, and it has given Jiang Chen the green light in many aspects. Of course, the local government's attitude is so friendly, naturally it is inseparable from the hundreds of millions of taxes paid by Futureman Company every month. Who would dislike having a money-making machine at home? It's full of political achievements. Besides, how long has Futureman Technology been established? If it continues to develop, it is hard to guarantee that a large internet company that is not inferior to Penguin will be born during his term. On the other hand, due to the continuous expansion of the number of users of Futureman 1.0, domestic users have exceeded the 200 million mark, and foreign users who have downloaded the multilingual version have also exceeded the 400 million mark. From the rise of Futureman 1.0, business elites from all walks of life have also keenly smelled the smell of money, and various letters of intent for cooperation have come like snowflakes. Sun Jiao is also very busy for this, because the chairman of the company always disappears from time to time. Even laymen know that the era of the internet is an era where traffic is king. This can be seen from the operation of O2O model software such as BB Taxi and mobile food delivery. In order to attract traffic, operators even spend a lot of money at a loss. However, Futureman 1.0 does not need to spend money. After all, no one can surpass it in the field of artificial intelligence and performance enhancement. There is no company qualified to compete with Futureman Technology in this field for the time being. Users have only one choice. It is precisely because of the monopoly of acceleration services and battery optimization services that, after operating free services for 2 months, Futureman Technology shamelessly changed these 2 services to paid items. New users will get a 2-month free trial period, but in the 3rd month, if they want to continue to enjoy these 2 services, they must spend 10 yuan to upgrade to VIP 1 users. In short, if you want to enjoy the speed of a 2000 yuan smartphone with a 1000 yuan configuration, just pay the monthly rent of 10 yuan honestly. Will anyone pay for acceleration services? The answer is obviously yes. Imagine that the games and software that your phone couldn't run before, because of the acceleration service of Futureman 1.0, your phone will no longer get hot like a fire stick when playing a game, and you no longer have to plan the power consumption when watching a movie. Can you still tolerate the previous mobile phone experience? 10 yuan per month. This is much cheaper than changing a mobile phone. Of course, when this paid project was first launched, there was a lot of scolding on the forum. Users who have not paid for VIP said that this is a fraud. When they downloaded it, they didn't know that this thing would be charged. Some people even threatened that if it is charged, they would delete Xiaobei. However, these people who lead the rhythm are only a small group after all. Although there are many users, there are only a few wipes. You can tell with a fart that they are water armies hired by some bored guy. Many paying users who have upgraded to VIP 1 are on the side of Futureman Technology, saying, is 10 yuan a lot? Can it buy a meal? Service is not an obligation. Why are there so many nonsense? Don't delete it quickly. Don't lower the average IQ of netizens. Users who have not paid yet have a relatively flat view. As long as the service is worth the price, they don't mind spending money. If you can afford a mobile phone, why care about a mere 10 yuan? However, are those who are clamoring really willing to delete Futureman 1.0? The number of domestic users who upgraded to VIP 1 that month exceeded 200 million, and the payment rate was so high that it killed questions members in seconds. The market has given the answer. As for the overseas market, it is relatively flat, because they are used to paying for genuine apps and there is really no cracked version on the internet. Most users accept the monthly rent of $2. Just a membership project in the software has brought billions of dollars in monthly revenue to Futureman Technology. Such a terrifying ability to attract money has once again shocked the bigwigs of Wall Street, and also made those venture capitalists who failed to get the meat regretfully beating their chests and stamping their feet. Although Jiang Chen has never said that he would introduce venture capital, it is an honor for Jiang Chen to become the only man who has appeared on the Wall Street Journal twice in half a year, a man from China. On the other hand, compared with the amazing performance of Future Man 1.0, although the response to the mobile game New Era is mediocre, it has also achieved impressive results. First of all, the number of players of New Era has exceeded 50 million, and the number of online players is approaching 10 million. Auction houses, fashion, warehouse expansion and other profit channels quickly realize the value of hype, and good gameplay makes user stickiness amazing. Now you can basically see the exquisite game screen of New Era when you take a subway or walk around a university classroom. The game editing function provided by Yao is very powerful. Basically, any creative idea you can think of can be realized in the game. Now the project team of New Era has expanded to 40 people, of which more than 20 are responsible for the expansion of game content. Some people are responsible for art, specializing in designing characters and fashion models. Some people are responsible for scripts, writing story plots, dungeon tasks, etc. Both the game content and gameplay have received rave reviews. After a warm-up, the overseas version was also launched as scheduled. According to Sun Jiao's report, the number of foreign players has exceeded 80 million and is growing steadily. Although the monthly revenue of 200 million is still a bit inferior to the Future Man 1.0 project, it is still far better than its peers. You know, this is a net income of 200 million, not a monthly turnover of 200 million. Although the monthly turnover of many mobile games can exceed 100 million, due to many factors such as R&D operating costs and bad debts, it is very profitable if 30% of this monthly turnover can be converted into actual revenue. A mobile game with a monthly income of 200 million is simply a miracle. In view of the popularity of this game, many large game guilds have also settled in New Era, and small game guilds have also sprung up like mushrooms after rain. The popularity of the game naturally drives the development of related industries. For example, game live broadcasts, such as professional competitions. Many third-party platforms have come directly to the door, hoping to cooperate with FutureMan Technology on the game New Era. In this regard, FutureMan Technology has also opened its doors and treats every potential partner with a welcoming attitude. So who hopes to cooperate with us on Future Man 1.0 and New Era, and jointly establish a new live broadcast platform with New Era as the main game? What do you think of this proposal? Jiang Chen said lazily, leaning on the sofa. It will be difficult to recover the cost in the short term, but it will help expand the influence of New Era and enhance user stickiness. Then I'll leave it to you. As if she had expected Jiang Chen to say this, Sun Jiao, who was sitting in the office, couldn't help but hold her forehead. Okay, in addition, the representatives sent by Daimler Group, Division, this is a pun, have arrived in Wanhei City in hope to discuss cooperation with us. Due to the special status of the other party's representative, out of courtesy, you can only come in person to negotiate. Daimler Group. Jiang Chen was stunned. He had never heard of this name. Sun Jiao on the other end of the phone was also stunned. Isn't the Maybach S600 you drive a product of Daimler Group? Sweat. I made a fool of myself. Jiang Chen scratched his cheek awkwardly. He really didn't know much about cars. Ahem. Who is coming? In order to hide his embarrassment, he decided to change the subject. Carmen Rothschild. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Artificial Intelligence plus Car. Nice to meet you, Mr. Carmen Rothschild. Seeing Carmen enter the conference room, Jiang Chen stood up and greeted her, smiling friendly. Thank you for your enthusiasm, and I'm also glad to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen, the mysterious oriental man. Carmen also smiled friendly and shook Jiang Chen's hand. High nose bridge, deep eye sockets, light green pupils. He looks thin and capable. From the restraint in his gestures, he really matches his background. Haha, do I look mysterious? Jiang Chen joked with a smile. Of course, there are countless possibilities in you, which is enough to be called mysterious in our opinion. Carmen smiled meaningfully and said. Hearing this, Jiang Chen was slightly stunned, then smiled and invited him to take a seat calmly. Jiang Chen has heard a lot of news about the Rothschild family. However, most of these news are unknown, and the truth is mixed with conspiracy theories, making it difficult to distinguish which part is true and which part is false. According to public information, the annual turnover of the Rothschild banking group is less than $10 billion, and the profit is less than $3 billion. It is estimated that its total capital will not exceed $30 billion, which is less than a fraction of the major European and American banks. Whether the current situation of this family has declined as it seems, or whether they are just deliberately fading from the public's sight as the conspiracy theorists speculate, all this is unknown. For example, Jiang Chen did not know that the Daimler Group was one of the Rothschild industries before. Of course, Jiang Chen was not interested in doing in-depth research on the history of the rise and fall of this family. He simply learned about the identity of Carmen Rothschild, who came to discuss business, and invited him to hold this discussion meeting. At this moment, the two were sitting opposite each other at the conference table, with 2 cups of hot tea and 2 identical documents on the table. Our group is very interested in your company's achievements in the field of artificial intelligence. I believe Mr. Jiang has read this letter of intent. I wonder if you have any good opinions? Without too much greetings, after sitting down at the seat, Carmen went straight to the point and got to the point. Artificial intelligence is almost the development trend in the next 50 years. This can be seen from the history of the wasteland. Although there have been differences in the nodes of history, since the Cold War, the overall development trend of civilization will not change. In order to grasp the pulse of the times, the Daimler Group has also made measures to adapt to the trend of the times. So it found Futureman Technology, a company that has emerged in the field of artificial intelligence, to explore the possibility of using artificial intelligence in the automobile production industry. Of course, but can I ask a question before the topic starts? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Excuse me. Carmen also smiled and said, I don't know why your company chose us. You know, our field of expertise is in the field of mobile phone software. As for the automotive industry, it is no exaggeration to say that we know nothing. Jiang Chen told the truth very frankly. Carmen did not give up on Jiang Chen's confession, shook her head and continued. It has no impact. We have already designed the radar sensor equipment and the main control computer for AI driving, and only the software is left. We originally had a partner, but the software developer we were working with had some problems, which resulted in the software and hardware not being perfectly compatible, and the car might freeze while driving. You know what the consequences of such a problem on the highway would be, so we terminated the contract. After a pause, Carmen looked at Jiang Chen meaningfully and smiled. We offered a very high price and our requirements were also very high. May I ask how much the price is? Jiang Chen took a sip from the teacup and smiled. $1 billion. Carmen stretched out a finger and spoke slowly. Hearing Carmen's offer, Jiang Chen was secretly shocked. Good guy, should we say that it is worthy of being a large consortium spanning the century? The price is $1 billion, and the business of selling software is much more profitable than selling gold. When thinking about this, he selectively forgot that he is now the chairman of a large company with a market value of $10 billion. This $1 billion is equivalent to the monthly income of future technology. But who would complain about having too much money? However, Jiang Chen's silence was interpreted by Carmen as a lack of money, so he smiled slightly and said, of course, this price is negotiable. If Mr. Jiang is not satisfied with the price, you can ask me. After all, if they can enter the field of artificial intelligence plus automobile before their competitors Audi and BMW, it will undoubtedly help them seize the market opportunity. It's just $1 billion. In 2014, Daimler Group's pre-tax profit was 10.8 billion euros, so its liquidity can be said to be very abundant. After a moment of silence, Jiang Chen slowly spoke. $1 billion is fine, but I have a condition. He frowned slightly, but the smile soon returned to Carmen's face. "Oh. Please speak. I need to add the Future Man 1.0 logo to the system's boot interface." "Add the Future Man 1.0 logo? Just this?" "I have to remind you that we have no plan to introduce a social platform into the autonomous driving system," Carmen said in a humorous tone. "It's okay, just add a logo. The duration is less than 1 second." Jiang Chen smiled nonchalantly. After just a moment's thought, Carmen nodded, then smiled and extended her hand. "Then I think our deal has been concluded, right?" "Of course." Jiang Chen also smiled and shook his hand. Happy cooperation. Since it was only a minor change, Carmen also brought a professional lawyer with her when she came, and the contract revision was completed on the spot. After signing, Carmen waved to the secretary behind her and then took a briefcase from her hand. "After signing the confidentiality agreement, we will submit the specific software requirements and chip samples to you. You only need to make a program that is compatible with our chip. Although the time in the contract is a bit tight, I believe that with your strength, you will be able to produce amazing results before May next year. In order to catch up with the launch of the new car next year, the program must be submitted before May, otherwise the filing and approval will have to be postponed, and the launch of the new car can only be regrettably delayed. In May, it is too underestimated Yao's strength. Of course, by the way, I would like to ask if there is any reward for early delivery," Jiang Chen asked with a half-joking look. Stunned for a moment, Carmen really didn't expect Jiang Chen to be able to finish it ahead of schedule. Generally, the development cycle of such professional software will not be very short, and it is not easy to complete it in 5 months. "If Mr. Jiang can finish it ahead of schedule, I can give you a small gift." Carmen laughed and said, "Can you give me a spoiler about what the gift is?" Jiang Chen said in a relaxed tone. "I heard that Mr. Jiang's car is our group's Maybach S600. I wonder if you are satisfied with our company's brand?" Carmen smiled mysteriously and said, "Of course, both the comfort and reliability are very satisfactory. If Mr. Jiang can deliver before May, I can give you a limited luxury sports car, the Maybach X, that is currently being designed, and only 5 units are sold worldwide." Chapter 218, The Importance of Brand. Maybach X, limited to 5 units worldwide, is expected to sell for 4.2 million euros, equivalent to 28.66 million yuan. Although this amount of money is nothing compared to the assets of the two, it is undoubtedly a symbol of friendship as a gift. Moreover, it is limited worldwide, and you may not be able to buy it, even if you want to. After sending Carmen out of the company, Jiang Chen looked at his phone. It was only a little after 3 in the afternoon, and it was a little too early to go back, so he decided to go back to the office and sit for a while. Due to the acquisition of Lingayu Technology, the Lingayu Technology building under construction was also transferred to Future Technology in a left-hand to right manner with the tacit consent of the second largest shareholder 361, and was officially renamed Future Technology Building. Sure enough, it feels different to have your own office building. Leaning on the boss chair, Jiang Chen sat in the chairman's office on the top floor, lazily overlooking the bustling street scene outside the window. This feeling is really wonderful. Just half a year ago, he was just an ordinary person walking at the bottom, running around for that meager salary. But now, he has gained the qualification to overlook all this. On the other hand, just looking at these, he really couldn't think about it. In the future of another world line, this place will be desolate. Unlike those traditional chairman images with dignified faces and conscientious decisions on the company's big and small affairs, he is very young and energetic. His desk is very clean, that is, the kind of clean that can't see documents. His eyes are a little lazy, just looking out the window motionlessly, looking at the endless stream of vehicles and the hurried crowds on the street. I don't know what's good about those things. Apart from crowded, she can't think of any better words to describe everything on this street. The above is Zia Xiao's perspective. At this moment, she is standing in Jiang Chen's office. Just like Jiang Chen quietly looking out the window, she also unconsciously looked at his profile and observed for a long time, so that she forgot the time. They have worked together for a long time, but she always feels that she still doesn't know him at all. And he seems to know her very well. Ahem, what's the matter? It was Jiang Chen who broke the silence first. With Jiang Chen's insight, he noticed her from the moment she came in. But what he didn't expect was that the girl didn't say anything, but just stared at him in a daze. Speaking of which, he hadn't had a good conversation with her since the last party. Ah, yes, a little. Ahem. Zha Xiao realized that her tone was a little flustered, and she coughed lightly, adjusted her mood, put on a professional expression, and spoke again. It's about the agreement with Daimler Group just now. Yeah. Jiang Chen turned around, slid his chair back to his desk, sat up slightly, and said, go ahead. By applying the Future Man 1.0 system to cars, are you planning to enter the automotive industry? Zha Xiao asked habitually, pushing her glasses. There is no plan for the time being, but it is possible in the future. Jiang Chen shook his head. In addition, the system customized by Daimler Group is not a transplant of Future Man 1.0. The software development is still handed over to the overseas team, and I will be responsible for it. According to Jiang Chen's plan, Future Man technology will naturally not let go of the big cake of the automotive industry. As a major selling point, artificial intelligence is naturally indispensable. In this case, why should we accept the commission of the Daimler Group to help them design this artificial intelligence autonomous driving system? This is certainly not to give them a bite of the cake first, but there is another consideration. As we all know, the quality of cars is one aspect, but in a sense, the more important thing is the brand that needs decades of operation. To give a very simple example, the quality of Dongfeng motor is actually quite good, but can it be sold at the price of Mercedes-Benz and BMW? To a certain extent, the brand of the car you drive can show the owner's worth. Cars are, to a large extent, not just a means of transportation, but a symbol of status. In layman's terms, it is a tool for pretending. Driving a Lamborghini will definitely be easier to pick up girls than driving a Volkswagen. The reason why the Future Man 1.0 logo is proposed to be placed on the boot screen when the system is started is not for the purpose of advertising. After all, the new car launched by the Daimler Group, which is equipped with an artificial intelligence autonomous driving system, is positioned as a luxury car in the high-end market. Since it is positioned in the high-end market, it is destined that the sales volume will not be very high. As an advertisement, the efficiency is naturally extremely low. Jiang Chen is interested in the brand. Let the brand of Future Man 1.0 be linked to the high-end market. With the newly launched luxury cars of the Daimler Group, the brand of Future Man 1.0 will be exposed to warm up for independent entry into the market. Imagine that as long as you start the luxury car launched by the Daimler Group with this system, you will see the eye-catching and cool logo of Future Man 1.0. Naturally, the trademark of Future Man 1.0 will be associated with the automotive field and the high-end market. As for those car manufacturers who seize the first opportunity, if Jiang Chen launches a new energy vehicle with better performance, it will be a question whether those car manufacturers will continue to exist. It's like we can't see steam locomotives now. The Daimler Group will eventually become a stepping stone for the rise of Future Man automobile. Of course, these are all things in the future. The next strategic focus of Future Man technology is not cars that have nothing to do with it, but mobile phones. Hearing this, Zha Xiao nodded. Then I'll leave this matter to you to negotiate. On the other hand, Linhua Group has sent you an invitation letter inviting you to attend the Wanghei City Business Forum to be held in 3 days. After saying this, Zha Xiao took out a gold-stamped invitation from her briefcase and placed it on the desk. Linhua Group is a well-known real estate developer in Wanghei City. However, in addition to real estate development, they also have dabbled in retail, entertainment and other projects, and can be regarded as one of the leading companies in Wanghei City. Wanghei City Business Forum. Picking up the invitation letter from the table, Jiang Chen frowned in confusion. He had never heard of this name. Well, it is said that the participants are all elites from all walks of life. Assets of over 100 million is just one of the thresholds. Whether you are qualified to participate depends on your influence in the industry. Zha Xiao nodded and said, a gathering of local tyrants? Jiang Chen's expression was a little amused. What are the benefits of attending such a gathering? Hearing Jiang Chen's question so directly, Zha Xiao couldn't help but hold her forehead. there are definitely benefits. After all, it is a gathering of Wanghei City's upper class. You can get in touch with people of the same level and make friends with like-minded people. The accumulation of these connections is a kind of wealth in itself. Hearing this, Jiang Chen touched his chin thoughtfully. Well, then I'll go. By the way, do you need to bring a female companion to such a party? After a pause, Zha Xiao said. Of course, it is feasible to bring female relatives to the party. Okay, then you go with me, Jiang Chen said without thinking. However, what he didn't expect was that as soon as he said this, Zha Xiao's cold face suddenly turned red. Chapter 219, The Conspiracy Nipped in the Bud. No, only very important people can attend. Zha Xiao's expression was obviously shaken, and her tone was rarely flustered. Isn't that just right? Jiang Chen smiled. Hearing this, Zha Xiao lowered her head, and her black bangs slightly blocked her eyes. Am I someone very important to you? Of course. Jiang Chen answered without hesitation. It can be said that Zha Xiao, as the CEO, has made an indelible contribution to the success of Future Man Technology Company. Jiang Chen had almost no experience in the operation of the company and the handling of emergencies, and left everything to Zha Xiao alone. Black technology is very NB, but if it is not operated by professionals, it is just black technology and cannot be turned into money. For Jiang Chen, Zha Xiao is as important as his right and left hands. However, the two people's understanding of the word important obviously has a little deviation. Hearing Jiang Chen's of course, Zha Xiao's face became even redder. But we haven't dated yet, and we are not sure if we are right for each other. It's really wrong to go straight to the last step. With her arms folded in front of her chest, Zha Xiao looked to the side, her index finger twirling her hair a little nervously, and even her fair neck was covered with blushes. Wait a minute, I don't understand. Jiang Chen hurriedly stopped Zha Xiao from talking and smiled bitterly. Zha Xiao was stunned for a moment, and then she lowered her arms. Can you tell me more about the conditions for bringing female guests? Sure enough, there was some misunderstanding between the two. It's okay to bring female guests, but they must be wives, or at least fiancées, not even girlfriends. Although there is no explicit regulation, it has almost become an unwritten rule. After all, if even girlfriends or lovers can be brought in, wouldn't the venue be in chaos? Many people who attended the party had more than one lover. Some simply changed their girlfriends to second or third tier celebrities or young models every few days. If everyone was included in this circle, it would be too cheap. In the final analysis, this was just a social gathering, mainly for the convenience of elites from various industries, to find partners who could help their careers, rather than a party for entertainment and leisure. Therefore, it seemed a bit inappropriate to invite Zha Xiao. Sorry, I didn't think of that meaning. Jiang Chen apologized embarrassedly. No, it's okay. Zha Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. I don't know if it was his illusion, but he always felt that her expression was a little lost. Well, everything is explained. I'll go back to the office first. Zha Xiao bent down slightly and turned to leave. Looking at Zha Xiao's back, Jiang Chen opened his mouth slightly, but in the end he said nothing. After coming out of the office, Zha Xiao went straight back to her office, but when she passed through the corridor, the blush on her face was seen by several colleagues passing by. Hey, President Zha just came out of the chairman's office. Seeing the pouting expression on Sumenka's face, her best friend Li Fengying poked her arm and joked. After the probation period, she has been transferred from the front desk to the business department and is assigned to the same department as her best friend. The two are now holding documents and walking towards the office. Well, I see. Sumenki responded listlessly, and her face is very red. Well, why are you so boring? Aren't you curious about what they did? Li Fengying said in Sumenka's ear with an extremely ambiguous expression. Be careful, I will tell President Zaya and deduct your salary. Sumenki stretched out her finger and poked her best friend's neck viciously and said in a low voice. After a silent frolic, the two entered the office. But Sumenka's smile was a little bitter. If the opponent was President Zaya, she would definitely have no chance of winning. Have you got the information? Already got it. In the presidential suite of the Hilton Hotel, Carmen Rothschild was sitting on a chair, and a black man was standing in front of him. Judging from his muscular appearance, he should be a soldier, at least not long ago. Johnson, who originally served in the French Foreign Legion, obtained French citizenship after retiring, worked in a security company, and now works for the Rothschild family. He is Carmen's bodyguard on this trip to China, and also his assistant. Jiang Chen, born in 1992, is from Hucheng, China. He received 9 years of compulsory education, and then studied at Wanhei University, majoring in machinery. After graduation, he worked as a salesperson in a clothing store. TSK, it's just a resume carved out of the same mold. Carmen cursed with a smile, holding a stack of documents in her hand, 10 pages of paper, on which all the information that could be collected about Jiang Chen was sorted out. After all, the people in this country are carved out of the same mold. Johnson grinned and laughed sarcastically. No, you don't understand what I mean. Carmen flipped the file and put it aside. It's because it's too common that its authenticity is questionable. Let's make an assumption. If we throw a graduate from MIT into Iraq, what would be his first reaction? Wetting his pants? That's right. Carmen snapped her fingers, then pointed at the document. But this man, not only did he not wet his pants, he also saved an American from the IS. This American is also an interesting guy. He smuggled arms in Ukraine and transported crude oil in Iran. In the end, he became more honest because he was targeted by the FBI. But recently he has become restless again and seems to be working for this Chinese named Jiang Chen. Hearing this, Johnson's face also swept away the contempt and showed a serious expression. Indeed. From this point of view, the Chinese named Jiang Chen should not be an easy person to deal with. How long do you think it will take to reach his level after training? Carmen smiled and said, is it just mentality or shooting? Of course it's mentality. After pondering for a moment, Johnson gave a pertinent answer. Based on his own experience, the training camp takes 3 months, and it only takes 3 days on the battlefield. Carmen nodded, reached out to take a bottle of red wine, and poured herself a glass elegantly. I think our intelligence may be wrong. At least this experience is likely to be forged. I'm just curious about what the organization behind him wants to do. They tricked us in Ukraine, but only took away a few veterans as instructors, and now they have built a mercenary base in Niger. TSK, it's really interesting. What do you mean, boss? Johnson asked. Keep the status quo and contact them first. In addition, I'm curious about where the USB flash drive will be sent to. Carmen took a sip of the red wine in the glass and a relaxed smile appeared on her face. If nothing unexpected happens, the briefcase should be sent abroad and taken over by the mysterious technical team. The USB flash drive he left for Jiang Chen has a built-in GPS tracking probe, which will feed the location information back to his computer. As long as the location of the mysterious organization is known, they will no longer be mysterious. Hearing the boss's words, Johnson was stunned at first, and then he laughed. Carmen made a toast to Johnson, then stretched out her hand with a happy expression, and tapped a few keys on the laptop on the table. The map appeared in front of her. Bang! The exquisite glass wine glass smashed into pieces on the ground. Without paying attention to the red wine spilled on his pants, Carmen stood up suddenly, put his hands on the table, and stared at the screen. At this moment, the relaxed expression on his face was gone. How is it possible? What happened? Johnson walked forward quickly, but when he saw the screen, the expression on his face froze. Signal lost. I was discovered. Haha, it seems that I underestimated him. Sitting back in the chair dejectedly, Carmen rubbed his temples and said with a wry smile. Chapter 220. It's all because of the scarf. Discovered? Did Jiang Chen really discover it? The answer is obviously no. Jiang Chen just thought it was troublesome to carry it, so he threw the briefcase directly into the storage space. Linling is probably the only one who can break through the spatial dimension and send GPS signals to this world. Now the size of his storage space has expanded to 20 cubic meters, so there is basically no need to consider the problem of insufficient space. 5 cubic meters of it are used to store munitions, such as PK-2000 assault rifles, mechanical exoskeletons, etc. Xia Xiao has left, and facing the empty office, Jiang Chen has nothing to do for a while. Work. If you interfere in the company's affairs casually, you may not be able to help, and you may even cause more trouble. Since you have become a hands-off boss, you can only be a hands-off boss to the end. If you can't work, you can only play games. After all, as the chairman, sitting in the office is a boost to the morale of employees. Well, that's it. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair and took out his mobile phone. Speaking of which, as a developer, he has never played the game he made. However, thinking that it would be too troublesome to register a new account, and thinking that Futureman Technology seemed to have a cooperation with the Sohu company in the live broadcast business, Jiang Chen smiled, searched the internet, and clicked on Sohu Live. The new Live broadcast platform is in the planning stage, but their original Sohu Live also opened a live broadcast column of New Era. Although it is a mobile game, due to the open world, wide degree of freedom, and amazing picture quality and rich game content, many people still treat it as a masterpiece of the terminal level. Looking at the popularity of the first ranking, Jiang Chen was secretly shocked, and then randomly picked a live broadcast room and clicked it. The screen is quite large, but the host's face occupies a quarter of the screen. Looking at the blood-spurting whiteness, and listening to the coquettish voice, Jiang Chen put on the headphones calmly. The female host played a thief, and seemed to be playing a copy, but it looked really bad. In order to kill a boss that looked like a turtle, she died 5 times. However, this is not the point. Every time she died, she would moan in a very seductive tone. Damn, is this playing a game, or calling a bed? While complaining with a frown on his face, Jiang Chen carried out the market research to the end. In this way, Jiang Chen got off work. Jiang Chen smiled and greeted the employees who were packing up, and walked to the elevator empty-handed. The elevator door was about to close, and Jiang Chen, who was afraid of trouble, quickened his pace, and rushed into the elevator. Coincidentally, Xia Xiao, who was leaving get off work, was also in the elevator. Seeing Xia Xiao looking at him with strange eyes, Jiang Chen realized that his actions just now were not steady. He smiled shamelessly, greeted her and spoke first. How was your work today? It's okay. I'm used to being busy. I'm going to take the remaining documents home for review. Xia Xiao pushed her glasses and said, don't get too tired. Your body is the capital of the revolution. Jiang Chen said with concern. Xia Xiao nodded silently, but from the expression on her face, she didn't seem to listen to Jiang Chen's words. You work so hard, I'm really ashamed to be the chairman. Then do you want to help me share some of the burden? Xia Xiao looked at the sighing expression on Jiang Chen's face, and couldn't help teasing. Let the professionals do it. If I do it, I'm afraid I'll make things worse. But it's okay for me to treat you to a meal. Jiang Chen joked. It was just a joke. According to Jiang Chen's impression of Xia Xiao, this girl would most likely refuse it coldly. However, what he didn't expect was that Xia Xiao was stunned at first, and then nodded. Okay, when? Jiang Chen suspected that he had heard it wrong. Didn't you say you would treat me to a meal? Xia Xiao frowned slightly, and tilted her head. I thought you would refuse. Do you want me to refuse? Xia Xiao looked at the elevator door and said faintly. Jiang Chen was stunned. The voice was like a dream or a soliloquy. Jiang Chen saw a trace of confusion and a feeling that he couldn't explain in her eyes. At this moment, he suddenly recalled that night. She was drunk that day, and he carried her back to her home. Intoxicated, she and he were very close. Who do you like? The words that sounded like a confession lingered in his ears. If the phone hadn't rang suddenly at that time, Jiang Chen believed that with his integrity, he would not have been able to control himself when Xia Xiao took the initiative. At this moment, a terrible and charming thought suddenly circled in his mind. If something really happened between them at that time, what would it feel like between the two of them now? Of course not. Jiang Chen smiled slightly and said softly, how about tonight? Okay. Xia Xiao nodded. The elevator reached the ground floor, and the two left the elevator together, and walked towards the garage. By the way, where is your car? Jiang Chen asked casually, after taking out the electronic key. I didn't buy a car. I drove the company car to the dinner party last time. I usually take the subway to get off work. Zha Xiao's answer surprised Jiang Chen. After all, you are an executive of a company with a market value of hundreds of billions of dollars. Will the bank refuse to give you a loan? Jiang Chen looked at Zha Xiao in surprise, pressed the electronic key, and opened the car door for her in a gentlemanly manner. I hate loans. Zha Xiao looked a little unnatural. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then he remembered her experience of being down and out because of a loan. Sorry, I reminded you of something bad. It's okay, thank you for that time. After getting into the car, Zha Xiao lowered her head. You're welcome. Everyone has down and out times. Jiang Chen sat in the driver's seat, fastened his seatbelt, and started the car. I mean the last time, when I was drunk. As she spoke, her pretty face blushed slightly, and she continued with some difficulty. I may have said something strange. I hope you don't take it to heart. It seemed that, because they recalled the last time in the living room, the two of them fell into silence in tacit understanding. The car drove very smoothly. Since getting on the highway, Zha Xiao has not spoken again, and Jiang Chen didn't know how to start. The atmosphere in the car was a little awkward. Suddenly, Zha Xiao took the lead in breaking the silence. I've been looking at Weibo recently. Huh? Do you have a girlfriend? Zha Xiao asked abruptly. Not yet. Why are you asking this suddenly? I noticed that you seem to have only one person you follow. Her name is Liu Yao? Zha Xiao said faintly. Jiang Chen heard this, and it tasted quite sour. Phew, come to think of it, that girl Liu Yao seemed to have said this. Because of this only follower, it seems that someone is still spreading rumors about her and him, and that girl seems to have become famous because of this. Last time, Aisha was interrupting him, and Jiang Chen forgot about it for a while, and never cared about it. Liu Yao, who had received tacit consent, naturally would not take the initiative to clarify, but use the usual trick of celebrities to deal with rumors, not responding to cover up the truth. The girlfriend of the national husband. I'm afraid Liu Yao would never have thought that the number of fans following her would actually increase several times, because she helped Jiang Chen register a Weibo account. I just watched her movie, so I followed her casually. For some reason, Jiang Chen lied subconsciously. His Weibo account was still registered by Liu Yao. Zha Xiao opened her mouth and seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she said nothing. He is not my person, why should I care so much? She thought in her heart with a little anger, and looked out the car window. Although she once had a boyfriend who never let him touch her hand, she was as innocent as a child in terms of feelings. When she found out that her favorite person had an ambiguous relationship with the opposite sex, she did not try to pull him back to her side, but just used coldness to vent her jealousy, and pushed him away. Besides, the two of them are not together yet. At this moment, Jiang Chen's mobile phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Is it Aisha calling? I have to tell her that I won't go back for dinner tonight. He didn't care. With one hand on the steering wheel, Jiang Chen took out the Bluetooth headset and hung it on his ear. His eyes were still on the road. Then he took out the mobile phone from his trouser pocket and pressed the answer button. Hello. Are you free now? A pure and charming voice sounded in his ears, obviously not Aisha's voice. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then looked at the screen of the phone in his right hand. Calling, Liu Yao. Also looking at the phone screen was Zha Xiao, who was sitting in the passenger seat. Chapter 221. Shura Field in the car. It's been a long time since we last met. Don't you miss me? Jiang Chen could imagine her big watery eyes, looking at him lovingly. Well, I do. Jiang Chen secretly glanced at Zha Xiao. Zha Xiao had already moved her eyes away from her phone, but her posture of looking straight ahead looked so stiff. Well, so cold. Liu Yao immediately noticed Jiang Chen's absent-mindedness and stuck out her tongue. Driving. How have you been recently? Jiang Chen casually changed the subject while holding the steering wheel. I'm filming on the set. I've been busy since this morning. I had lunch and dinner together. I'm really exhausted. Although she was complaining, Jiang Chen could hear a hint of joy in her voice. It can be seen that she really loves the career of acting. If she just likes money, with the pocket money Jiang Chen gave her, she can do nothing and enjoy the life of being raped. The sound of the crew arranging the plot can be faintly heard on the other end of the phone. It seems that she also made this call in her spare time. Haven't you eaten yet? Jiang Chen asked casually. I'm eating now. Wow, the lunchboxes on the set are so awful. I want you to treat me to a big meal. Liu Yao said in a tender voice. Let's talk about it when you're not busy. Well, okay. Speaking of which, when are we going to go on vacation? I'm really looking forward to it. Liu Yao said excitedly. Let's go this month, but can you leave now? Jiang Chen couldn't help laughing when he heard that cheerful voice. Have you forgotten that you're also one of the producers? The director and the like still have to listen to you. When the time comes, I can adjust my role and put it later. It's just a matter of your words. Liu Yao said in a tender voice. After a slight pause, Jiang Chen immediately remembered that it seemed to be true. The reason why the producers found Liu Yao was not so much because they saw her ability as because they saw Jiang Chen's ability. But Jiang Chen didn't care. He was not short of money and directly invested 100 million yuan, becoming the largest investor in the Ma Dongmei Troubles that was being produced. Except for big name directors like Jet Li and Zhang Yimou, the investors are the ones that any small director has to please. If you offend them, they will withdraw their investment out of displeasure, and you can just cry with the script in your hands. Where can you find an investor who will give you 100 million yuan and will not change the script at will? So, Liu Yao got the qualification to play the second female lead. At the same time, the boot-up interface of all mobile phones in the play was also changed to the boot-up animation of Future Man 1.0 at the request of Jiang Chen. That's true. After reacting, Jiang Chen smiled and said, speaking of which, what are you doing now? Inviting someone to dinner. Is it a beautiful woman? Liu Yao pouted. Yes. Jiang Chen said honestly. Are you as beautiful as me? While eating the lunchbox elegantly, Liu Yao rolled her eyes cunningly and said in a delicate voice. Each has its merits. Jiang Chen replied vaguely. Wow, I always feel so unwilling to hear this answer. What type of girl is she? Oh, she's right next to me. How can I answer this? Jiang Chen secretly glanced at Zai Xiao and answered cleverly and obscurely. A bit like your homeroom teacher in the last movie. Oh, that one. The iceberg beauty type who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside? I can be like that too. After a pause, Liu Yao moved closer to the phone and covered it with her hand, lowering her voice and changing to the cold and serious voice of an iceberg beauty. Jiang Chen, why didn't you hand in your math homework? What? Didn't do it? That won't do. Come to my office after school. The teacher will watch you finish it. Hand in all the homework you didn't do yesterday to the teacher. Jiang Chen could imagine how the bright red lips bit the last few words into emphasis. Damn, this little devil. Jiang Chen was so angry that he almost stepped on the accelerator. Fuck. You're here. Ah, the break is almost over. I'll hang up first. Muah. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief and took off his Bluetooth headset. Did you really just follow Liu Yao casually? Zai Xiao said playfully. I also asked for her phone number casually. Damn, why did I have to lie? Jiang Chen complained to himself in his heart. It seemed that he didn't intend to continue on this topic. Zai Xiao didn't continue to ask, but turned her head to look to the side. Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, held the steering wheel, and focused on the road ahead. I always feel that the atmosphere is weird. Is she jealous? Jiang Chen's expression became weird because he didn't know where to eat. Jiang Chen drove Zai Xiao to Bailey and Shimeo. Welcome, ma'am and gentlemen. As soon as Jiang Chen and Zai Xiao walked into the Xiao Pavilion Western restaurant, the waitress at the door greeted them with a smile. Well, help me pick a quiet table for two. Jiang Chen said casually. Okay, sir, this way please. The waitress said politely. Because it was a weekday, there were not many customers in the store. Normally, if you want to eat, you have to wait in line for half a day. The environment in the store is very elegant, the sound is very quiet, and most of the people who dine here are couples. Seeing this scene, Zai Xiao's cheeks were slightly red, and her legs were slightly stiff. If I eat here, wouldn't it seem that he and I are a couple? Thinking of this, Sun Jiao glanced at Jiang Chen calmly. However, she did not see the tension she expected on his face. He didn't seem to notice that the atmosphere here was like a date. Thinking of this, Sun Jiao couldn't help but feel a little annoyed, although she couldn't even say why she was annoyed. Regardless of what Sun Jiao was thinking, Jiang Chen really didn't notice that there was anything wrong with the atmosphere here. He just felt that the environment here was very good and quiet. Men are destined to be simple animals and don't think too much like women. After being seated under the guidance of the waitress, Jiang Chen picked up the menu and handed it to Sun Jiao in a gentlemanly manner. "What do you want to eat?" As she was thinking about something, Sun Jiao put her index finger on her lower lip while looking at the dazzling menu. For a moment, she couldn't think of what to eat. Seeing the expression on the customer's face, the waitress smiled slightly and skillfully promoted the dishes of her own restaurant. "Is this your first time in our restaurant?" Our cheese and bacon risotto is very good, and this steak is also well received. Of course, I recommend this couple set meal, which is very suitable for couples to dine together, and it also comes with a special dessert, heart to heart. Hearing this, Sun Jiao's face turned red, especially when she saw the cold drink ice cream named heart to heart on the menu. The two straws were ambiguously formed into a heart shape and intertwined. Her brain froze instantly. Love, couple. No, you misunderstood. Ahem, we are just friends, not lovers. Seeing the panic on Sun Jiao's face, Jiang Chen also explained to the waitress. Although both of them denied it, the waitress was very keenly aware that the woman's face was more shy, and the man's face did not look awkward, so the relationship between the two must be between friends and ambiguity. With a slight smile, the waitress bowed and apologized, and at the same time inadvertently pushed the two. "Sorry, I'm really sorry. I saw that you two looked like a couple, so I misunderstood. I hope you don't mind." Husband, and wife. Sun Jiao was completely panicked, and Jiang Chen also touched his nose with a slight blush. However, at this moment, a discordant voice sounded. "Waiter, are you not ready yet? Can you hurry up?" Hearing this voice, Sun Jiao's expression froze on her face instantly. Jiang Chen could clearly feel that the face, which was not very expressive to begin with, became even colder. Chapter 220 To a dog. "Please wait a moment, sir. This table, can't you see we have to order now? How dare a poor guy come to a Western restaurant and take so long to order a dish?" the man cursed. "Sorry, sir, I'll be right there." The waitress gave Jiang Chen an apologetic look, stuck out her tongue, and hurried to the table. "Are you a coward? Dear, what would you like to eat?" The man sitting not far away scolded the waitress arrogantly, then changed his face and put on a loving expression and asked the woman sitting opposite him attentively. Jiang Chen looked at the man's back in astonishment, and his expression on his face was a little strange. "Poor guy? Me?" Then, Jiang Chen looked at Sun Jiao. The expression on her face was a little unnatural, and she stared at the lemonade on the table with a look of horror. "Is he an acquaintance?" Jiang Chen, who was about to go up to him to make friends, also gave up the idea and looked at the man with a playful look. His face was as white as wax, and his hair combed with gel had a trendy feel. His ironed and straight white suit looked like it should be worth a lot of money. In general, this man looked good, except that he was a bit effeminate. But his arrogant face was really annoying. As for the woman, she had a black bob, a delicate face, a red cotton dress, and brown leather boots. She was lazily sitting on the table with her legs crossed. From her clothes, it was hard to tell her worth, but from her temperament, Jiang Chen could vaguely feel that she was born noble. From her slightly narrowed eyes, it could be seen that she seemed to enjoy the feeling of being flattered. "Vegetable salad will do." A very lazy voice. "Okay, don't you need dessert or something? For example, this heart to heart? No, it's a bit disgusting." The red lips drew an arc. The man's expression was slightly stiff, but then he showed a warm smile on his face. "Well, I'll have a Thai fried rice and a bottle of red wine." "Yes, sir." The waiter suppressed his arrogant tone, silently wrote down the order in the notebook, and then took the menu to the front desk. This was not the first time she had seen such a bad-tempered customer. Arguing would only make things difficult for her salary. Clumsy. the man added with a curse, and then looked at the woman gently. Zilan, you are so beautiful, the man said in a very disgusting tone. The woman's expression showed a hint of joy, her eyes narrowed with satisfaction, and her red lips parted slightly. My shoes are dirty. Huh. The man thought he had heard it wrong. Shoes. The woman lifted her boots slightly. A hint of embarrassment flashed across the man's face, but then he gritted his teeth, knelt on one knee, held her boots in his hands, and wiped the dust off the top of the boots carefully with a tissue. The people sitting nearby looked at her sideways. Most of the female customers were talking to their boyfriends in a low voice with shining eyes, while most of the male customers were looking at her with disdain. However, the man did not care about these looks, and was very considerate to clean her shoes. TSK, it's crazy. Jiang Chen shook his head. Seeing his dog-like behavior, Jiang Chen understood. This man should be a gigolo who was asterisk, but this gigolo is really undignified. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen also lost interest in him. You have to look at the person when you slap someone in the face. He really has no interest in arguing with a dog. But just when he was about to look away, he unexpectedly found that the woman seemed to be looking at him. The slightly narrowed eyes ignored the man who was kneeling on one knee and diligently cleaning his shoes, and looked at Jiang Chen with interest, as if expecting him to do something. In response to the woman's gaze, Jiang Chen just smiled, said nothing, and looked away. Seeing that Jiang Chen did not express anything, the woman raised her hand and yawned, looking away slightly disappointed. The waiter came over and apologized to Jiang Chen and Zha Xiao again and again. However, Jiang Chen did not embarrass her and ordered with Zha Xiao. Do you know him? After the waiter left, Jiang Chen took a sip of lemonade and asked softly. I know him. From the tone, it seems that their relationship is not very good. Are they enemies? Seeing that Zha Xiao was in a bad mood, Jiang Chen did not continue the topic, but talked to her about other things, which gradually made her smile again. Aren't you curious about the relationship between him and me? Zha Xiao said abruptly. Although I'm a little curious, I didn't ask, because you seem to hate this topic. Jiang Chen shrugged and smiled. After a brief silence of 2 seconds, Zha Xiao looked at the expression on Jiang Chen's face, and said a little coldly. He is my ex-boyfriend. However, Jiang Chen's reaction was very calm. Zha Xiao didn't know why she felt a little annoyed, although she didn't know what kind of expression on Jiang Chen's face would make her feel satisfied. But we didn't even hold hands, she added subconsciously. Hearing this, Jiang Chen suddenly burst into laughter. What are you laughing at? Zha Xiao frowned and whispered. I just think you are very cute. Jiang Chen teased. Zha Xiao's face suddenly turned red, and the cold expression seemed a little forced. No. After all, sometimes when he went to the apocalypse, the media would wait outside the community for a few days, but they might not be able to catch him going out. If people only occasionally read the news, they might know the name Jiang Chen, but they certainly know very little about his appearance. Excuse me, miss, what is your name? Jiang Chen asked very gentlemanly, taking his hands out of the dryer. Hearing this, the bright red lips curved up, and the phoenix eyes under the bob haircut seemed to flash with a cunning light. Wang Zinan. Chapter 223 3 slaps. Wang Zinan, is that right? Maybe you should control your boyfriend? At least make him look less annoying. Jiang Chen smiled as he stood in front of her. Boyfriend? Puff. She suddenly covered her mouth and laughed, but soon she regained her previous elegant posture, looked at Jiang Chen with a playful look, and then said, Mr. Jiang is really humorous. That's not a boyfriend, at most a pet dog. Stunned for a moment, Jiang Chen didn't expect her to say it so directly, and then teased. Even if it's a dog, it's better to control it. After all, sometimes, the character of a pet also reflects the taste of the owner. To be able to let a man cling to such an extent, her identity must be not simple. Although he was not afraid of anything, with the attitude of less trouble is better than more trouble, Jiang Chen still carefully chose to save her some face, just teasing her in a very subtle way to express his dissatisfaction. It seemed that she didn't expect Jiang Chen to say this. Wang Zinan was slightly stunned, but she was not angry, but showed an expression of interest. Oh. If Mr. Jiang doesn't like me keeping a dog, I can release him. What does it have to do with me, whether you keep a dog or not? Really? With a mysterious smile, Wang Xinan just left this ambiguous answer and brushed past him and went into the bathroom. Confusedly looking at her back, Jiang Chen shook his head and smiled and walked away indifferently. Back in the restaurant, Jiang Chen unexpectedly found that his seat seemed to be occupied by someone. The man in a white suit sat in his seat without knowing when. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but frown slightly, but soon, the expression on his face was replaced by a playful smile, and then he walked straight over. Yo. I didn't expect to meet you here again. How have you been recently? This face was very funny, as if he had already achieved success. I don't know you. Go away. Zha Xiao said coldly. TSK, it's really cold. The man shook his head. Aren't you afraid that the woman you're licking will see you? You just went to the toilet and you're already flirting with other women. You're still a dog as always, Zhu Yaocheng. A disdainful smile appeared on Zha Xiao's cold face. Hearing this, Zhu Yaocheng's face flashed with anger, but it soon turned into ridicule. Haha, flirting? Are you qualified? I just happened to see an old friend and came up to say hello. I don't remember having a friend like you. TSK, you're still as cold as ever. It seems that you have found a new boyfriend. How about, has he touched your little hand? Zhu Yaocheng looked at the cold expression on her face with amusement. Zha Xiao took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, and said lightly, I don't have a boyfriend. I didn't have one before, and I don't have one now. Oh, then how did you pay off the loan? I remember you lost your job. Could it be? Zhu Yaocheng glanced at her chest with a lewd and mean look. Finally put aside your pride and hooked up with some rich man. TSK, it's true. Do you think I'm the same as you? Zha Xiao interrupted his dirty talk coldly, raised her chin, and moved her thin lips slightly. You're a wimp without any personality. A flash of anger flashed across Zhu Yaocheng's face, and he stood up immediately. You, however, before he could finish his words, a hand was placed on his shoulder. Zhu Yaocheng was stunned, and when he turned around, he saw a smiling face. I agree with the lady's point of view. Besides, who allowed you to sit in my seat? Jiang Chen said to him with a smile. Seeing Jiang Chen, Zha Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, and a sense of security rose in her heart. Laugh. This restaurant is owned by your family? So what if I sit down? Zhu Yaocheng was furious, and he grinned and retorted to Jiang Chen. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his mouth completely tilted to one side. Pa. Without saying anything, Jiang Chen put his hand on his shoulder and slapped him on his annoying face. I really don't own this restaurant. Your butt is on your buttocks, and you are free to sit wherever you want. I'm not happy with you, so I put my hand on my arm, and I'm free to beat you up. Jiang Chen said with narrowed eyes, shaking his hand. Looking at Jiang Chen's actions, Zha Xiao was completely stunned because of surprise. She never thought that Jiang Chen, who was always very gentle, would suddenly take action. Was it for me? Thinking of this, her cheeks actually flushed faintly. This slap made Zhu Yaocheng dizzy and staggered back 2 or 3 seats. With 3 times the strength of an ordinary person, even if Jiang Chen could control his strength, it was still not something that a pretty boy who had just spent a few days in the gym could compare to. Fuck you. You dare to hit me? Blood rushed to his head, and Zhu Yaocheng grabbed the steak knife on the table and stabbed Jiang Chen with it. Be careful. Zha Xiao screamed in shock. However, Jiang Chen just smiled disdainfully, not even bothering to dodge, just standing there waiting for him to rush over. Just kidding. If this level of attack can hurt him, then he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself. The knife stabbed about 2 inches in front of Jiang Chen, but Jiang Chen did not dodge and just pinched his wrist lightly. Zhu Yaocheng felt as if his hand was clamped by a pair of pliers. His face suddenly turned the color of liver. Then his vision turned upside down, and he fell to the ground fiercely. A knife was nailed into his face 2 inches away, embedded in the wooden floor. Zha Xiao stared with her eyes wide open, her mouth slightly open, and her cold expression was completely replaced by surprise. She had never thought that Jiang Chen would have such skills. No, it seemed that he had done so before. That night when she was blocked by gangsters at the door of the flower shop, Jiang Chen walked slowly in front of Zhu Yaocheng, watching him groan and curl up. The guests on the side swallowed their saliva and wanted to step forward to persuade them to stop fighting, but Jiang Chen just glanced at them, and the idea of persuading them to stop fighting disappeared from their minds. Some people secretly called 110, but Jiang Chen didn't care. Squatting on the ground, grabbing his gel-coated hair, Jiang Chen grinned at him. Then he raised his hand and slapped him. "Pa. This slap is for Zha Xiaoyu. Do you know that you left a lot of debt to a weak woman like her, and she was almost dragged into a nightclub by a few hooligans to work as a prostitute? She is still your girlfriend. Are you a piece of shit?" Hearing Jiang Chen's words, the onlookers also looked down on Zhu Yaocheng, who looked like a dog, and no one sympathized with this man who was beaten black and blue. He deserved it. If I hadn't happened to run into him that day. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen's heart was filled with anger again. "Pa. This slappies because I don't like you. You can think of the reason yourself." After 2 slaps, blood flowed from Zhu Yaocheng's nose and mouth. Seeing that it might get bad if he continued to hit him, Jiang Chen took a deep breath and stopped. Throwing his head aside, Jiang Chen stood up. "After all, this is not the end of the world, so you still have to be careful." He was dizzy, and it took him a long time to recover. Lying on the ground, Zhu Yaocheng looked at Jiang Chen with resentment. "Just wait for me. I'm going to make it impossible for you to stay in Wanghei City. Come on. Do you know who I am? A whore?" Jiang Chen teased, wiping his hands with a tissue. "I'm from Linhua Group." However, at this moment, a female voice floated from not far away, ruthlessly crushing his last glimmer of hope. "You are not anymore. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224. I don't like men. The voice was a bit lazy and playful. Zinan? Zhu Yaocheng, who was lying on the ground, stared blankly at the woman at the entrance of the aisle, and repeated in an unbelievable tone. "Linhua Group will not offend the prosperous future technology for a small fry like you. Don't you think so, Mr. Jiang Chen?" Wang Zinan walked to Jiang Chen with an elegant step, and said to him with a smile. Hearing the words future technology and Jiang Chen, Zhu Yaocheng's face changed instantly. He originally thought that the man who had dinner with Zha Xiaoyu was just an ordinary small boss with some money in his pocket, but he didn't expect it to be the legendary Jiang Chen. A closer look showed that they were quite similar. His blank eyes turned into fear. "Although I don't mean to complain about other people's personal hobbies, I really don't understand what's so good about this scumbag who sells his girlfriend." Jiang Chen did not answer Wang Zinan's question, but just smiled and asked meaningfully. It turned out to be Linhua Group. This surprised Jiang Chen. Speaking of which, he also received an invitation from Linhua Group to attend the Wanghei City Business Forum. There are uses for scum. For example, give him the power and status he dreams of, and see how ugly he can be. Wang Zinan narrowed her eyes slightly, and her eyes were slightly morbid. "It's crazy." Looking at Zhu Yaocheng lying on the ground with pity, Jiang Chen stepped over him and walked towards Zha Xiaoyu. The waiters and Bailey and Shimeo's security guards had already surrounded him, but seeing that Jiang Chen's identity seemed to be not simple, no one dared to step forward to do anything to him, but just help the bruised and swollen asterisk up. Control the situation and wait for the police to arrive. Zinan, you can go away. I'm almost tired of seeing you. Wang Zinan yawned and said, I really like you. Please, give me another chance." Zhu Yaocheng broke free from the security guard who helped him up, fell in front of Wang Zinan's boots, and begged without dignity. "You don't think you can pick me up, do you?" Wang Zinan flashed a mocking smile on her face. "I'm sorry, I don't like men at all." Hearing this, Zhu Yaocheng was completely dumbfounded. "Don't like men? Then what's the point of my efforts these days?" As if he had lost all his strength, his bruised face was twisted, and Zhu Yaocheng seemed to have lost his soul, with his hands slumped on the ground. After leaving Zha Xiaoyu, Zhu Yaocheng drove the car bought with a loan using Zha Xiaoyu's ID card, and ran away with his affair partner. However, things did not develop as smoothly as he expected. Without his source of income, he quickly spent all his money. He was a gigolo and couldn't even find a decent job. After a quarrel, he broke up with the person he had known for less than a month. After a lot of twists and turns, he worked as a waiter in a bar. By chance, he came into contact with the profession of gigolo. However, this profession is not a long-term solution after all. Those rich women who have money but nowhere to show their sexual power are destined to not give him any promises. He tried to do the last job and get a permanent meal ticket. In the end, he set his sights on Wang Xinan, the daughter of Wang Linhe, the chairman of Linhe Group. Fortunately, Wang Xinan did not shoo him away like a fly, but gave him the opportunity to show his courtesy. But he didn't expect that he was just being played as a joke from beginning to end. Not only did he still fail to touch her hand, but he was always polishing shoes. Wang Xinan looked down at Zhu Yaocheng, who looked at him with a playful expression, and a happy smile gradually appeared at the corner of her lips. This feeling is really great. I'm sorry, it's rare for me to treat you to a meal, but the fly ruined my mood. How about making it up next time? Jiang Chen said apologetically as he sat in front of Zha Xiaoyu. No, it's my fault, Zha Xiaoyu said in a low voice with a slight blush on her cheeks. At this moment, a boss wearing glasses and a slightly short and fat figure came over. Looking at the knife marks on the floor and the people around him, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Why don't we just talk it out? You two look like people of status. It's not good to use violence. Jiang Chen could see the meaning in his eyes, so he took out a bank card from his pocket and threw it directly into his arms. 1 million. I'll pay for the decoration of the store. The boss was stunned at first, and then his face showed ecstasy. Mr. Jiang, you don't have to spend money. The loss of Zihuayu Pavilion will be compensated by Bailey and Shimeo. Manager Chen, how about returning the card to Mr. Jiang? Miss. A drop of cold sweat dripped from Chen Anmin's forehead. He realized that the woman standing at the door of the store was Wang Xinan, the daughter of Chairman Wang. Bailey and Shimeo is an industry under the Linhe Group. How dare a small merchant like him go against the chairman's daughter? With a wry smile, Chen Anmin put the card on the table. He glanced at Wang Xinan in silence and saw that she was winking at him playfully. That look seemed to say, you owe me a favor. This favor is really cheap. Jiang Chen silently complained in his heart. 1 million is really nothing to him. As someone called the police when the conflict just started, the police arrived at the store very quickly. Zhu Yaocheng, who was disheartened by the loss of his meal ticket, blamed all these misfortunes on Jiang Chen. Facing the police, he was very unreasonable and insisted that it was Jiang Chen who beat him up like this, and asked the police to severely punish Jiang Chen and threatened to sue Jiang Chen. Seeing this, Wang Xinan couldn't help but hold her forehead, worried about his IQ, and then impatiently took out her phone, called his cousin, and then cast an apologetic look at Jiang Chen. However, Jiang Chen didn't care, but just flashed a playful smile on his face. In this case, the wisest thing for Zhu Yaocheng to do should be to insist that he fell, and then settle privately with Jiang Chen, and maybe he can get a nutrition fee. But now, are you kidding? Is Jiang Chen afraid of him suing? The surveillance shows that it was indeed Jiang Chen who started it first. But this was not a big deal, especially after Wang Xiang went to the police station in person. Because Zhu Yaocheng was unruly, according to the procedure, Jiang Chen had to accompany him to the police station to take notes and then accept mediation. Yes, mediation. After the police officer in charge of the case was informed by his superiors, he skillfully ignored the bruises on Zhu Yaocheng's face. He first classified the incident as a civil dispute without explanation, and then explained to Zhu Yaocheng the legal definition of provocation, and explained that he had provocative behavior, so there was no question of who started first and who started later. Moreover, he used a knife in defense, which was suspected of excessive defense. In the end, he talked a lot, and Jiang Chen, who was too lazy to listen, had left, leaving Zhu Yaocheng, who looked aggrieved, still sitting on the stool, accepting the police's legal education, and personally experiencing the injustice of society. How did you get involved with that little witch? After accompanying Jiang Chen out of the police station, Wang Xiang sat in the driver's seat of the Maybach very consciously, and asked with a wry smile, "Little witch? Do you know Wang Xinan?" Jiang Chen's expression was also a little strange. My cousin. After starting the car, Wang Xiang got on the road. Speaking of which, where is your girlfriend? Ahem. Not a girlfriend, just a female friend. I've asked her to go back first. Glancing at Jiang Chen ambiguously, Wang Xiang smiled and stepped on the accelerator to get on the road. I understand. Female friend. Fuck, why are you so dirty? Jiang Chen said with a frown. Ahem. By the way, let me tell you something. This is advice from a friend's perspective. Be careful of Wang Xiang. That woman, it's best not to get involved with her. Wang Xiang suddenly changed to a serious tone and said to Jiang Chen. Oh, is there something wrong with her? Jiang Chen frowned. Problem? She's a psychopath. Wang Xiang cursed. Chapter 225 Doubt. Crazy? Jiang Chen couldn't help but have a strange expression on his face. From Wang Xiang's tone, he seemed to be at odds with his cousin, but this was not the point. The point was that Wang Xiang was actually Wang Xiang's cousin. In other words, Wang Linhua, the chairman of Linhua Group, the leader of the real estate industry in Wanghei City, was actually the brother of Wang Dehei, the secretary of Wanghei City. This was incredible information. But after thinking about it, Jiang Chen was relieved. If you can make it in the real estate industry, who would believe it? If you don't have any relationship with the people above, to get land, projects, quality inspections, and a series of other procedures, you have to deal with officials. If you don't have any background, even if the real estate industry is very profitable, it can't resist several hands making money together. But Jiang Chen didn't expect that the backstage of Linhua Group was so strong. Crazy? Jiang Chen asked with a smile in a casual tone. That's right. Lit a cigarette and put it between his lips. Wang Xiang curled his lips. She was a little bit like that when she was a child, and it became worse when she grew up. I don't know what stimulated her. Anyway, her personality became like this. Naughty? Jiang Chen smiled. Because Wang Xiang was her cousin, Jiang Chen only chose a mild word to describe her. Naughty? Wang Xiang glanced at Jiang Chen, grinned and continued. You underestimate her too much. She just enjoys other people's pain. After a slight pause, Jiang Chen's face showed a nonchalant smile. Who cares? It was just a coincidence anyway. By the way, at this moment, Wang Xiang suddenly said, did you receive the invitation letter? Invitation letter? Wanghei City Business Forum. Well, Linhua Group did send me one. Is there any problem? Jiang Chen asked confusedly. Wang Xiang hesitated, as if he wanted to say something, but shook his head again. Forget it, it's nothing, don't take it to heart. Jiang Chen frowned slightly, he could vaguely smell something unusual. But seeing that Wang Xiang didn't seem to plan to say more, he didn't ask any more. In the following time, the two just bragged casually, and no one mentioned the business again. After listening to Wang Xiang's interesting military stories along the way, the car finally drove into a community and stopped at his door. Go up to have a meal? After getting out of the car, Wang Xiang invited Jiang Chen with a smile. Forget it, I've already eaten. Jiang Chen smiled and declined after opening the main driver's door, and then got in the car. After saying goodbye to Wang Xiang, Jiang Chen restarted the car and drove straight to the villa in Sangjiang. When he arrived home, it was completely dark. Looking at his phone, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. He drove the car into the garage, closed the door casually, smiled and rubbed Aisha's little head who came to the door, and went to the bathroom to take a shower first. After taking a shower and changing into loose pajamas, Jiang Chen sat on the sofa in the living room and drank hot milk to rest for a while. Then he went to the kitchen, took out 2 boxes of mango pudding from the refrigerator and threw them into the storage space, and then walked to the bedroom. In front of the bedroom door, he saw Aisha in a black nightgown. Her slightly curly brown hair was stained with a little rain and tied into a smooth ponytail with a red and white ribbon. From the slightly rising heat, it can be seen that the little girl had just taken a shower and dressed up. Can we sleep together? Aisha's cheeks were slightly red, and her gentle eyes were full of love. Sorry, it may not be possible tonight. I have to go back there. Jiang Chen said apologetically. Tonight he had to go back to the end of the world to give the chip samples and USB flash drive to Yao and then ask Sun Jiao about the movements of site number 7 to formulate the next development direction of the base. I guess Sun Jiao wouldn't let him come back so late. Although she was a little disappointed, Aish nodded in understanding. Looking at her slightly pouting mouth, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile dotingly, stretched out his hand to rub her wet long hair, and then leaned his forehead against hers. I'll wake you up tomorrow morning. 2 blushes appeared on her cheeks, and Aish nodded shyly. Yeah. With a slight smile, he kissed her fair and soft forehead, and walked towards the bedroom, closing the door. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Chen closed his eyes, and then silently started the journey. When he opened his eyes, the beautifully decorated walls had been replaced by walls with faint cracks, and this was already the end of the world. Exhaling a breath of air from the present world, Jiang Chen did not stay in the room, and pushed open the door. Before going to find Yao, Jiang Chen decided to go to Linling's laboratory and bring her the mango pudding she had been thinking about. Huh, you're back so soon. Looking at Jiang Chen at the door in surprise, Linling put the test tube in her hand on the test tube rack. I'll be back soon. Jiang Chen took out the 2 boxes of pudding and put them on her desk. Your pudding. Seeing the mango pudding, Linling's eyes instantly turned into pudding-like eyes. She grabbed the box and held it happily in her arms. Seeing the little guy's happy look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. Don't eat too much at night. Be careful not to dry your stomach. It doesn't matter. I'm a robot. Linling clenched her little fist and said proudly. Then it's up to you. Put the rest in the refrigerator and freeze it. This thing tastes better when it's cold. After saying that, Jiang Chen turned and walked out the door. Wait a minute. Linling suddenly jumped from the stool to the ground, ran to the door click, and reached out to grab the corner of Jiang Chen's clothes. What's the matter? Jiang Chen turned back to look at Linling in confusion. Thank you. It was rare that this little girl actually expressed her gratitude honestly, without saying anything stupid like haha, I'm very satisfied with your tribute. Jiang Chen couldn't help but have a strange expression on his face as he looked at Linling, who was lowering her head shyly. You're welcome. Are you here to bring me pudding? Linling said a little shyly with 2 red clouds floating on her cheeks. That expression seemed to be expecting something. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but raise a sly smile at the corner of his mouth. Of course not. I came back to bring the chip to Yao. Woo. Linling twisted her eyebrows in frustration, stretched out her little fist, and hit Jiang Chen's chest hard, then ran back to the house in her cotton slippers click, and angrily closed the door. Looking at the closed wooden door, Jiang Chen showed a smile that couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since I had bullied Linling, but it turned out to be surprisingly fun. Shaking his head, Jiang Chen walked upstairs. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.